Chapter 338. You want to use force? Sure. Song E, who was rushing over, took out a silver-gray glove when he saw his opponent's punch. He also threw a straight punch. Bang! An earth-shattering explosion accompanied by a powerful shock wave spread out, causing the hill beneath their feet to tremble violently. Many of the spectating cultivators' expressions changed drastically. Song E, who was rushing forward with all his might, was sent flying far away. Xiao Yu, who seemed to be defending passively, was still standing firmly on the hill. He only felt a slight pain in his fist. Xiao Yu was not afraid of any demon lord experts in this kind of head-on collision of strength. A cultivator at the peak of the late-stage spirit demon realm like Song E was no match for him. Song E was extremely shocked at this moment, because the gloves he wore on his hands were destroyed, and his entire arm had disappeared from the explosion. That glove is a supreme-grade demon artifact. How can his punch be so powerful? Song E could not suppress the shock in his heart after he steadied himself. Although he knew he was at a disadvantage in this head-on collision, Song E would not admit defeat just like that. He flew over again. Do you still want to fight? You're already injured. You've lost, Xiao Yu said indifferently. You've only pushed me back. It's too early to say who's the winner. Song E sealed the veins in his arm to stabilize his injury. Then, a demon sword hovered above his head. If you come again, it won't be as simple as losing an arm. Xiao Yu wasn't prepared at all. Instead, he reminded him expressionlessly. We're both at the peak of the late-stage spirit demon realm. Do you think you can kill me? Song E seemed to be enraged. He swung his arm forward, and the demon sword whizzed towards Xiao Yu. At the same time, Song E shouted and threw out 7 or 8 supreme-grade demon talismans. Whether it was the supreme-grade demon sword or the 7 or 8 supreme-grade demon talismans, they were very rare treasures for cultivators below the mystical demon realm. If not for the fact that they had to enter the independent space, Song E would not have so many treasures. These treasures were meant for life-saving in the independent space. Now, Song E, who was already angry, was attacking Xiao Yu with all of them. After that, Song E even performed a hand seal. Song E could tell from the first exchange that his opponent's close combat skills were far superior to his, so he had to use long-range attacks to defeat his opponent. Unfortunately, before he could form the seal, a dark yin-yang fish had already shot out from the other party's hand with a heart-palpitating might. Regardless of whether it was his devil sword or those top-grade devil symbols, they all crumbled upon contact with the yin-yang fish. Although the supreme-grade devil sword and supreme-grade devil talisman had been defeated, they had consumed more than half of the yin-yang fish's power. Song E struck out a hand seal to disperse the yin-yang fish. However, as soon as the yin-yang fish dissipated, countless palm shadows rushed over like a raging tide, locking onto Song E. Song E cried out in alarm, but he quickly put on a devil armor and a defensive light shield to protect himself. Song E thought that his defense was very strong, but the palm shadows that filled the sky instantly broke through his defensive light shield and slammed into his devil armor. Even though the supreme-grade demonic armor could help Song E negate the attack power of the palm shadows, it couldn't negate the resonance and penetration of the palm shadows. It couldn't stop the powerful resonance from affecting his soul and demonic infant. The palm shadows that filled the sky then dissipated. Under the shocked gazes of countless cultivators, Song Yi's body fell from the sky weakly. Many cultivators who were a little braver ran to Song E and took a closer look. Their expressions changed drastically because they were shocked to find that Song Yi's vitality had been cut off. Anyone could tell that Song E was very strong. Not only was his cultivation at the peak of the late-stage spirit demon realm, but he also had several supreme-grade devil artifacts and devil symbols. Although he could not be considered invincible under the black demon realm, he should not have been killed so easily. Looking at the person who was fighting with Song E, they saw that he had not moved from his original spot from the beginning to the end, nor did he use any Dharma treasures. This meant that it was very easy for him to kill Song E, and he obviously had a lot of energy left. Whether it was the process of the battle or the result of the battle, everyone felt that the two sides were not on the same level at all. However, the two of them were clearly in the same realm. Could there be such a huge difference in strength between cultivators in the same realm? Song Yi's death made many cultivators fearful of Xiaoling Yu. No one dared to muster up the courage to challenge him. I won't be merciful in the future. If you dare to come up, you must be prepared to face death. Xiaoling Yu sat cross-legged at the top of the mountain, but his voice clearly reached the ears of every cultivator nearby. This is a true expert. The cultivators who recognized the difference in strength but did not want to throw their lives away all sighed in admiration and left. Although everyone felt that taking turns to fight the expert at the top of the mountain would exhaust his strength, and that expert would definitely not be able to last until the end, that expert had already made his move to kill. No one was willing to rush up and be the scapegoat for others. Brother Liu, your junior brother was killed just like that. Aren't you going to go up and take revenge? In the crowd, a cultivator in a blue robe asked a cultivator in a purple robe with a smile on his face. I'm not his match. If I go up, I'll probably only be throwing my life away. Junior brother Song was too impulsive this time. The purple-robed cultivator shook his head and smiled bitterly. He is indeed very strong, but he might not be stronger than you. Even if he is stronger than you, it's not by much. The blue-robed cultivator commented. I don't know when the entrances to those independent spaces will appear. I have no interest in exchanging blows with an expert of similar strength before then. If I get injured and lose the right to enter, it won't be worth it. The purple-robed cultivator still shook his head and said, Brother Tooba, you should go up. You're stronger than me. Defeating him should be an easy task. The blue-robed cultivator smiled and said, It won't be difficult for me to defeat him. However, I have to unlock 30% of the seal. It's not worth it. Hearing this, the purple-robed cultivator asked curiously, When you defeated me last time, how much of the seal did you unlock? The blue-robed cultivator replied, 10%. The purple-robed cultivator's expression changed. Initially, he thought that he had lost unjustly the previous time. However, he did not expect that this fellow would have such a strong trump card. How much of the seal did you unlock in total? The purple-robed cultivator could not help but ask. 50%. The blue-robed cultivator replied indifferently. The purple-robed cultivator was stunned and said, You're already comparable to an early-stage mystic demon after unlocking 10% of the seal. If you unlock 50%, wouldn't you be comparable to a late-stage mystic demon? Hearing this, the blue-robed cultivator merely smiled and did not reply. Brother Tooba, I've asked around previously. This person bought his token for 3 million demonic crystals. The purple-robed cultivator suddenly reminded. The blue-robed cultivator frowned slightly and said, You mean that he might have even more demonic crystals on him? The purple-robed cultivator smiled and said, Do you think he would have fewer demonic crystals on him if he was willing to spend so many demonic crystals on a token? Brother Tooba, if you challenge him now and kill him on the spot, those demonic crystals will all belong to Brother Tooba. The blue-robed cultivator muttered to himself for 2 breaths and then said, I don't care about demonic crystals. However, it would be a pity if I don't go up and spar with an expert of the same level standing before me. Brother Liu, since you're here to support me, watch me go up and meet him. With that, the blue-robed cultivator with the surname, Tooba, leaped up and flew towards the mountain peak. What a greedy villain! After the blue-robed cultivator flew away, the purple-robed cultivator with the surname, Liu, coldly muttered. Xiaoling Yu originally thought that after killing one as an example, no one else would come up to die. However, before the time it took to brew a cup of tea had passed, another person actually flew up. The spectating cultivators were originally preparing to leave, but when they saw another person go up, they stopped out of curiosity and continued to watch. The one who just went up seems to be Tooba Mingyang. This is going to be a good show. Tooba Mingyang is the #1 expert in the northern region below the Mystic Demon stage. Not just the northern region, experts from the other regions are also unable to defeat him. It's definitely going to be a good show when two tigers fight. Amidst the discussion of countless cultivators, Tuoba Mingyang arrived at the mountain peak and cupped his fists towards Xiaolingyu. I'm Tuoba Mingyang, and I'm here to seek your guidance. I hope you'll be merciful. If you want to fight, then fight. Don't be long-winded. I've said it before, I won't be merciful. Xiaolingyu coldly snorted and then suddenly asked, "Which Tuoba family are you from?" Tuoba Mingyang looked at the other party's expression and felt very unhappy. He proudly said, "North of the demon realm, the Tuoba family of the Ming-Jiang continent." Hearing this answer, Xiaolingyu asked again, "If I kill you here, will the experts of your Tuoba family come out?" Tuoba Mingyang immediately glared and said angrily, "We're openly challenging each other. Life and death are up to fate. Naturally, no one will interfere. If you can kill me, then don't worry and just do it." Xiaolingyu laughed loudly and said, "Ha, good, as expected of a top noble family in the demon realm. You have backbone and principles." The reason he asked that was to deliberately let Tuoba Mingyang say this in front of countless cultivators. He had originally said that whoever came up would die, but this Tuoba Mingyang still went against the wind, which made him extremely angry and impatient. In addition, he didn't have the slightest good impression of the Tuoba family, so his killing intent was naturally heavier. "You're about to die, and you still dare to be arrogant." Tuoba Mingyang was completely enraged. He didn't waste any more words and directly slapped his forehead, chest, and lower abdomen. Then his entire body's aura began to surge wildly. Xiaolingyu didn't stop him, nor did he make a move. He still stood in place and calmly waited for Tuoba Mingyang. In just 2 or 3 breaths, Tuoba Mingyang's aura had actually risen to the level of a peak mid-stage mystic demon cultivator. "As expected, you have some ability," Xiaolingyu secretly praised, but his expression was still calm. Because even if Tuoba Mingyang himself was at the peak of the mid-stage mystic demon realm, he would still die, not to mention that he relied on a secret technique to forcibly raise his aura to the peak of the mid-stage mystic demon realm. Chapter 339. Tuoba Mingyang's speed was also extremely fast, and the surrounding cultivators could only see a blurry figure. Xiaolingyu only narrowed his eyes and did not move at all. Tuoba Mingyang's mouth already revealed a sinister smile. In his opinion, the other party did not move because he was too fast, and the other party could not react in time. That bloodthirsty dagger instantly flashed with a cold light and slashed towards Xiaolingyu's throat. What made Tuoba Mingyang's blood boil was that his dagger very accurately slashed the other party's throat, but in the next moment, Tuoba Mingyang shockingly discovered that the blood-splattering scene that he imagined did not appear. Only a white mark appeared on the other party's neck, and it was not cut open. Furthermore, his other arm was tightly grabbed by the other party. The elites of the Tuoba family are all so weak. Xiaolingyu and Tuoba Mingyang looked at each other and asked with disdain. Tuoba Mingyang looked at the other party's mocking face and felt a wave of fear in his heart. Crack! With a crisp sound, Tuoba Mingyang's arm was torn off by Xiaolingyu and thrown aside like trash. Xiaolingyu was about to send Tuoba Mingyang flying with a flying kick, but who knew that Tuoba Mingyang actually flew away first. "I'm going to kill you." Looking at the bowl-sized bloody hole on his shoulder, Tuoba Mingyang's expression seemed a bit sinister. He roared loudly in the air and then slapped his head, chest, and lower abdomen, these 3 places each. Although Tuoba Mingyang was injured, his aura was surging wildly. In 2 breaths, it had already risen to the peak of the late-stage mystic demon. Tuoba Mingyang originally wanted to take advantage of the situation to charge forward, but seeing that the other party was still looking at him with disdain, he suddenly felt very guilty and slapped his 3 vital points again. Tuoba Mingyang's aura continued to rise wildly, and in a few moments, he actually surpassed the mystic demon stage and reached the early-stage demon lord stage. A cultivator at the peak of the late-stage spirit demon realm was actually able to forcibly raise his strength to the early stage Demon Lord realm with the help of a secret technique. This shocked everyone. Even Xiaoling Yu was a little surprised. However, when he thought about how the Tooba family even had a Demon Lord level expert, this little bit of secret technique was nothing to him. Die! Taba Mingyang charged towards Xiaoling Yu with an imposing manner. Before he even got close, the dagger in his hand had already drawn a demonic cold light in the shape of a crescent moon, chopping towards Xiaoling Yu's waist. This blade light already possessed the attack power of an early-stage Devil Monarch expert, but Xiaoling Yu still remained in place, as if casually striking out a circle of yin-yang fish-shaped seals. The solid yin-yang fish whizzed out and collided fiercely with the blade light. Then, both of them dissipated at the same time. At this moment, Taba Mingyang had already rushed in front of Xiaoling Yu. He suddenly dodged to the right with the speed of a demon lord, and the dagger in his hand stabbed towards Xiaoling Yu's temple. Xiaoling Yu still had a smile on his face. When the dagger was an inch away from him, he suddenly raised his arm, and his index and middle fingers accurately clamped the dagger. No matter how Taba Mingyang increased his strength, he was unable to move his dagger forward even a little bit. Still too weak, Xiaoling Yu shook his head and said. Then his two fingers suddenly turned, and the dagger left Taba Mingyang's hand. Taba Mingyang could not suppress the shock in his heart, but he still very calmly turned around and retreated. At the same time, he slapped towards his own head. However, before Taba Mingyang could slap his lower abdomen, the sky full of palm shadows appeared on the mountain peak, and all of them quickly pounced towards him. At this moment, Taba Mingyang's fear was even greater. Ever since he started cultivating, this was the first time a cultivator of the same stage made him feel so powerless. As he was retreating, Taba Mingyang was anxious to release the seal again and did not choose to put up an effective defense immediately. Therefore, when he realized the danger and wanted to put up a defense, it was already too late. The palm shadows that filled the sky were like ghosts that pounced onto Taba Mingyang's body. His body was also like a withered leaf drifting in the wild wind. After all, Taba Mingyang had not truly reached the early-stage Demon Lord realm. His soul and demon-nascent soul were actually still at the peak of the late-stage Spirit Demon realm. Even if he had the aura of an early-stage Demon Lord, he could not block Xiaoling Yu's soul rending demonic palm. Bang! Taba Mingyang's body fell from the mountain peak like Song Yi's body and crashed heavily onto the ground. This time, no one dared to go up to check. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly at Taba Mingyang's body, waiting for him to stand up. Unfortunately, after waiting for a full 100 breaths, not only did Taba Mingyang not stand up, his entire body did not even tremble. Finally, someone swept over with their demon sense and was shocked to find that Taba Mingyang, who had a shocking aura just now, had no signs of life at all. No one expected that Taba Mingyang could actually raise his strength to the Demon Lord realm. Even more so, they did not expect that even a Demon Lord would be beaten to death by that person on the mountain peak. How could a cultivator of the Spirit Demon realm have such powerful strength? In fact, if Taba Mingyang was a true Demon Lord realm expert, Xiaoling Yu would not be able to kill him without moving at all. This battle caused all the surrounding cultivators to turn around and leave after waking up. No one dared to take any chances. As for Taba Mingyang's corpse, it was taken away by that purple-robed cultivator. Not long after, an expert suddenly appeared on the mountain peak where Xiaoling Yu was. The newcomer seemed to be middle-aged with a gloomy face. He narrowed his eyes and sized up Xiaoling Yu for a moment before asking, "Did you kill Taba Mingyang?" Xiaoling Yu's mind swept across the other party unceremoniously. He could not detect the other party's strength, not even a trace of energy fluctuation. He could guess that the other party was definitely not at the Demon Lord realm and was conservatively estimated to be at the early stage of the Demon Emperor realm. "I killed him," Xiaoling Yu said calmly. "So, before you killed him, you also knew that he was from my Taba family?" The person asked again. "That's right." Xiaoling Yu nodded in response. "Since you knew that he was from my Taba family, why did you still kill him?" The person asked with widened eyes. He wanted to kill me and used that secret technique to forcibly raise his strength. Why can't I kill him? Xiaoling Yu asked with a sneer. Your Excellency seems to be looking down on our Taba family, the person said angrily. Before I fought with Taba Mingyang, I warned him not to provoke me. He once said that his challenge had nothing to do with the Taba family. Even if he was killed here, no one from the Taba family would take revenge. Could it be that the people of the Taba family don't keep their word? Xiaoling Yu said, with seemingly full of energy. Hearing this, the person's expression changed again and again. He seemed to be a little hesitant. The bigger the family, the more scruples they had in doing things. Especially in a place like the immortal execution continent, there were many representatives of the various forces of the demon realm. Those representatives were all powerhouses. Although they did not move around much, it did not mean that they did not know some things. The words that Taba Mingyang said before were heard by countless cultivators and naturally spread. If the Taba family came to take revenge at this time, it was indeed a bit of bullying. Moreover, the major forces and the big shots of the demon realm had previously made it clear that on the immortal execution continent, any cultivator below the black demon realm could only fight one-on-one. Others were not allowed to interfere. After the fight, their own powerhouses were not allowed to take revenge. Although the Taba family was powerful, Xiaoling Yu reckoned that they would not dare to blatantly come to settle accounts with him. Therefore, he had always placed his position very conspicuously. You think too simply of things. If I kill you, no one will question it. After pondering for a moment, the person's expression suddenly turned cold. Then his body flashed, and he flew towards Xiaoling Yu. If the powerhouses of the Taba family really did not care about their reputation, the other major forces might not stand up for Xiaoling Yu. After all, he did not have any major forces behind him. The speed of the Demon Emperor was naturally not something that Xiaoling Yu could compare to. He was just about to raise his hand to resist when the other party arrived. Junior of the Taba family, you have crossed the line. The Demon Emperor of the Taba family was less than 3 meters away from Xiaoling Yu. In the next moment, his palm was about to ruthlessly slap Xiaoling Yu's head when a figure blocked in front of Xiaoling Yu. The Demon Emperor of the Taba family immediately stopped and stared at the person who had suddenly appeared. Then he cupped his fists and said, Senior, please give the Taba family some face. Although the person's back was facing Xiaoling Yu still knew who she was because she was wearing a red gauze dress. Whether it was her figure or the aura on her body, Xiaoling Yu was extremely familiar with it. The person who had come was Miao Ying, who had the cultivation of a late-stage demon venerable. You want to kill my man, and I still have to give you face? Miao Ying asked with a cold smile. Man, the Demon Emperor of the Taba family's heart trembled. He had never imagined that the two in front of him had that kind of relationship. Your Taba family has existed in the demon realm for countless years, but you have always been very annoying. I think it's better to remove your name from the demon realm. Miao Ying used a calm tone to say something shocking. Senior, you sure talk big. My Taba family has been able to stand in the demon realm for so many years. How can we be removed from the demon realm because of Senior's words? The Demon Emperor of the Taba family said with a laugh. With such a commotion, it naturally attracted many experts to watch. Most of them were existences at the Demon Emperor level. I know you don't believe me. You think that your Taba family will never fall, just because Taba E is at the top of the demon realm. But in reality, if Taba E hadn't hidden like a coward, he would have died long ago. As soon as Miao Ying said that, not only the Demon Emperor of the Taba family, but even the experts of the demon realm who were watching from afar frowned. By the way, why am I saying this to a junior like you? Words are always useless. Let's talk about something practical. Chapter 340. Everyone has agreed that mystical demons, demon monarchs, demon emperors, and even demon sovereigns can't participate in battles below the mystical demon realm. This junior from the Tuoba family has crossed the line, so I'll kill him here. Does anyone have any objections? Miao Ying flicked her finger to disperse the blood-red light, then asked the surrounding demon realm experts with a smile. No one responded, and their expressions were a bit complicated. Fellow Taoist, the spatial barrier between the immortal and demon realms is about to crack, and the two realms are about to enter a war. Please put down your personal grudges and join forces to defeat the immortal realm. An old man flew over and cupped his hands. This old man was clearly also a demon sovereign. I will naturally contribute to the war in the demon realm. However, even without the Tuoba family, the demon realm can still defeat the immortal realm. Meowing replied indifferently. The Tuoba family is also a top force in the demon realm. There are countless experts in the family, and Tuoba is a demon sovereign expert. Fellow Taoist, I'm afraid it won't be easy to eliminate him. If both sides suffer, it will be very disadvantageous to our demon realm. There are very few demon sovereigns, and if two of them aren't in peak condition, it will definitely have a huge impact. Fellow Taoist, please think twice before you act. The old man shook his head and said with a righteous look, Hee, destroying the Tuoba family is a piece of cake. I fought with Tuoba before, and he planted a curse on me, but he was also heavily injured. If we meet again, I will definitely kill him within 3 moves. Meowing said confidently. Last time, Meowing was cursed and almost died, but in the end, she managed to turn the situation into a blessing. As a late-stage demon sovereign, she could naturally underestimate Tuoba. I advise fellow Taoists to consider this after the war between the immortal and demon realms. Otherwise, the old man didn't finish his sentence. Otherwise, are the few of you going to help Tuoba? Meowing asked. We are not helping fellow Taoist Tuoba, nor are we helping the Tuoba family. We are helping the demon realm. The old man said righteously. No matter what you choose, I must destroy the Tuoba family first. As for you helping, I'm afraid you won't be able to change the situation. Instead, you will be inviting trouble. Actually, your real enemy isn't the experts of the immortal realm, and definitely not me. Meowing said calmly. Then who is our enemy? The old man asked curiously. You will know when the time comes. And the 3 realms will, Meowing said without elaboration. And don't think about defeating the immortal realm or helping Demon Sovereign or his family. Meowing said vaguely. Seeing that Meowing didn't seem to be lying, the old man frowned and thought for a while. Suddenly, his face changed greatly. Could it be that the one on the Blood Moon continent with that's? In at most 1,000,000 years, he'll definitely reach the peak of perfection once more and roam the 3 dimensions unrivaled once more. They, Tao heaven, to them, to God too. God to. Meowing smiled. You must be afraid. You know his temper. I believe you know a little about it. After being sealed for so many years, who knows what he will do once he regains his strength? The old man's expression became complicated, but he soon laughed. I have no enmity with him. Why should I worry? After the old man said that, he left. He didn't try to persuade Meowing. Since the honorable realm expert had left, and he seemed to have been scared away, the other cultivators who were surrounding the area naturally did not stay for long, and they all left one after another. Why are you here? When Meowing turned around, Shaoling Yu asked. Why? You don't want me to come? Meowing replied, unhappily. That's not it. I just feel that you don't want to see me after leaving without saying goodbye. Shaoling Yu shook her head. I left in a hurry because I went back to settle the score with Tuoba. Meowing explained. Did you find him? Shaoling Yu asked. I found him. We even had a fight. Meowing answered. What was the result? Shaoling Yu asked again. Before I dual cultivated with you, he and I fought to a draw. During the battle at Mingjiang continent, although he managed to inject the soul-extinguishing devil curse into my body, he was also severely injured. When I found him again, I was already a late-stage immortal realm expert. Not only did he not improve, he was also heavily injured. How could he be my opponent? However, when he saw me, he seemed to see the gap between us. He didn't attack, and used an escape technique to escape. Meowing said casually. Then you came here to see me? Shaoling Yu asked. Not entirely. I came here because the space between the immortal realm and demon realm is about to crack. I felt that Toba E would come. I also wanted to see the methods of the immortal realm experts. Miao Ing replied. Fortunately, you came. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have lost my life here. Xiao Yu smiled bitterly. You don't have to fight with the Toba family for a token. With your wealth, strength, and talent, why do you need to go to that independent space to seek opportunities? Miao seemed to be very puzzled. Xiao Yu hesitated for a moment, but still said truthfully, I don't want to seek opportunities. I want to use that independent space to go to the immortal realm. Miao frowned. Why do you want to go to the immortal realm? Xiao Yu hesitated for a moment, then said, to find someone, that person must be very important to you, right? Miao asked with concern. Very important. Xiao Yu nodded, but he was afraid that Miao would continue to ask. I want to remind you that even if you're able to traverse the entire independent space, there will definitely be experts from the immortal world guarding the exit on the other side of the immortal world. Once you appear in the immortal world, it's extremely likely that you'll lose your life. Miao didn't pursue the matter and only reminded him. I can disguise myself as a cultivator of the immortal realm. Xiao Yu replied. Then how will you come back? Wait for the next independent space between the two realms? Miao asked. This? I don't know. Xiao Yu replied with a helpless look. In that case, you probably don't plan to come back. Miao Ying's pretty face also showed a wry smile. Xiao Yu was speechless and could only remain silent. Sigh, it seems that this is my fate. Miao sighed after a long while. The wry smile on his face turned into self-deprecation and sadness. Xiao Yu didn't know why, but when he saw Miao Ying's expression, he suddenly felt a little sorry for her. But the other party was a demon venerable late-stage expert. Why should he feel sorry for her? You are a demon venerable late-stage, so you don't need protection, but there are still people in the immortal realm who need my protection. Xiao Yu couldn't help but explain. I hope we can still have the chance to meet again, and I also hope that when we meet again, you can give me a bigger surprise. After saying this, Miao seemed to find it difficult to face Xiao Yu. Her body faded and then disappeared. Xiao Yu felt a sense of regret in his heart, and his thoughts were also tangled. But no matter what, not only were he and Anya husband and wife, but they were also husband and wife in name, and the two of them had a very good relationship. He and Miao only had a husband and wife relationship. He knew in his heart how to choose. If you are sincere to me, I will not let you down. Looking in the direction Miao disappeared in, Xiao Yu was silent for a while, and suddenly said, I also hope that we can meet again, and I hope that the next time we meet, I will not need your protection, but you. After saying this, Xiao Yu sat down cross-legged and continued to wait for the independent space to open. The reason why Xiao Yu said that was because he suddenly remembered that Miao had said that he was her man. What Xiao Yu didn't know was that Miao hadn't gone too far, and her devil sense had been staring at him the entire time. Hearing his words, Miao Ying's originally disappointed, depressed, self-deprecating, and sorrowful expression all disappeared without a trace. Instead, it was replaced by a smile. A good man should be brave and not borrow the wings of others. He should ride the wind and roam the three realms. Only then is he worthy of being my Miao Ying's man. After laughing, Miao Ying muttered to the mountain where Xiao Yu was. With the matter of Tuoba Mingyang and the demon emperor of the Tuoba family, naturally, no one dared to provoke Xiao Yu. Moreover, everyone said in private, the expert on the mountain is the man of a female demon supremacy. After waiting for nearly 200 years, the entrances to the 4 independent spaces finally appeared. All cultivators with tokens ranked within the top 40,000 hurry to the entrances of the independent spaces within 4 hours. There will be no more delays. After hearing this dignified and deep voice, everyone stood up and headed towards the 4 independent spaces that had been determined long ago. At this moment, in the sky above the immortal execution continent, there were 4 misty clouds flashing with silver light. Those are the entrances to the 4 independent spaces, and there were already countless experts of the demon realm guarding them. As for the cultivators with tokens, as soon as they approached the entrances, they were ordered to enter immediately and not to stay. Xiaoling Yu had arrived here very early, but he did not go in. Instead, he kept looking around, as if waiting for someone to send him off. Miaoing was still staring at Xiaoling Yu from afar. Seeing Xiaoling Yu like that, although she was a little reluctant, she also felt a little sweet. She knew that Xiaoling Yu was waiting for her, so she also knew that Xiaoling Yu did not care about her. Demon Realm, I will be back again. Miaoing did not appear. After waiting for all the cultivators to enter the independent spaces, Xiaoling Yu roared and also entered the misty entrance. Although it was an entrance, it was not safe inside. As soon as Xiaoling Yu entered, he saw a cultivator in the late stage of the spirit demon realm get careless and get hit by a blade-like spatial turbulence, dying on the spot. Chapter 341. The further he went, the more chaotic the power of space at the entrance became. Spatial turbulence could be seen everywhere. Xiaoling Yu unfolded his wings of speed and dodged the turbulence. Occasionally, he would be hit, but his wings could absorb the power of space. After about 10 minutes, Xiaoling Yu passed through the entrance and arrived in a misty world. Most of the cultivators who came in before him had already flown away. Some of them stopped here with nervous and palpitating faces. The danger at the entrance alone had taken the lives of nearly 1,000 cultivators. The danger of this trip was beyond the imagination of many unprepared cultivators. Xiaoling Yu, on the other hand, did not linger on the spot and continued to move forward. This independent space was huge. If Xiaoling Yu wanted to go to the immortal world, he had to be able to find the exit in the immortal world. And if he wanted to find the exit in the immortal world, the devil world did not have any effective methods. The only way was to capture someone from the immortal world and let him lead the way. Xiaoling Yu did not come here to seek any opportunities. He only wanted to go to the immortal world. So, the most important thing for him now was to find someone from the immortal world. So Xiaoling Yu was on full alert and moved as fast as he could. He moved forward with all his might and carefully searched for any signs of life. In fact, Xiaoling Yu knew that it was impossible to meet someone from the immortal world at the beginning. After all, the entrance to the immortal world had just opened, and the people from the immortal world had just entered. Naturally, no one could say for sure how big this independent space was. However, it was said that the independent spaces in the past were very vast, about the same size as a medium-sized continent in the devil world. With such a large area, even if Xiaoling Yu moved at full speed without any stops or delays, it would take him at least 1,000 years to cross it. So, conservatively speaking, he would need to fly at full speed for 800 years before he could meet someone from the immortal world. After all, cultivators below the mysterious demon stage could not be as fast as him. After 2 hours, Xiaoling Yu finally flew out of this misty world. His eyes finally opened up. Indeed, as the rumors said, the land of the independent space could be said to be full of devastation. Thick black smoke pillars could be seen everywhere, and one could also see large pits and wide ravines. Apart from the fact that there were no severed limbs or charred corpses, no matter how one looked at it, this place looked like a battlefield where a fierce battle had just taken place, and not a place where opportunities were hidden. After stopping to watch for a while, Xiaoling Yu continued to move forward with a serious expression. After half a year, Xiaoling Yu stopped again. This was because in his mind, there was an extremely tall mountain not far from his left. At the peak of the mountain, there was pure white snow. What was even more strange was that there were countless pure white lotus flowers in the snow. In the past 6 months, Xiaoling Yu had seen many mountains. She had even seen mountains taller than this one, but she had never seen any mountain with white snow. She had not seen any living creatures along the way. His heart was filled with curiosity, so he flew towards the mountain. Although he was not here to seek opportunities, if there were opportunities in front of him, Xiaoling Yu naturally did not mind taking a few treasures with him to the immortal realm. After flying to the middle of the mountain, the spatial pressure gradually increased. Even Shaolin Yu felt that it was a little difficult to continue climbing. This independent space was located in the spatial barrier between the immortal realm and the demon realm. The spatial pressure here was much higher than that of the immortal realm and the demon realm. In the demon realm, Shaolin Yu could climb such a large mountain, but in this independent space, he needed to expend a lot of energy. Circulating his power and flapping his wings with all his might, Shaolin Yu used almost 4 hours to fly to the place where there was white snow and snow lotus. Using his mind to carefully scan the surroundings, Shaolin Yu did not find any danger, nor did he discover any signs of danger. Only then did he take out a small shovel that was specially used to collect high-grade medicinal herbs and dig at the roots of the snow lotus. Unexpectedly, just as the small shovel touched the roots of the snow lotus in Shaolin Yu's eyes disappeared. Shaolin Yu was startled. Inwardly cursing, he leaped away. As he retreated, he was shocked to discover that the mountain was still there, but the snow on the mountain had all disappeared. However, there was still an incomparably cold aura, which turned into a cold mist that assaulted his face. Shaolin Yu knew that he had been deceived by a high-grade illusion technique. As he had not yet reached the mystic demon realm, it was indeed difficult for him to see through such high-level illusions. When the cold mist attacked and was about to envelop him, Shaolin Yu quickly formed a primal chaos demonic seal and struck it out first. The primal chaos demonic seal did not disappoint Shaolin Yu. In an instant, it dispersed the cold mist. However, after the cold mist dispersed, it gathered together again in a flash and rushed toward Shaolin Yu. With a thought, the 6 demons suppressing immortal orbs flew out from his body and cast a divine light barrier around Shaolin Yu's body. The cold mist was blocked outside by the divine light barrier. No matter how hard it tried, it could not break through. Unexpectedly, it flew away on its own and turned into an icicle, whistling as it pierced towards him. Shaolin Yu wanted to test the various attacks of the cold mist, so he used the divine light barrier to block it. However, for the sake of caution, he had already grasped the silver moon broken blade in his hand. With a bang, the icicle pierced the divine light barrier and really did pierce through it. However, the icicle's power was also exhausted and it exploded into countless ice crystals. At this time, Shaolin Yu had already landed halfway up the mountain, but there were no more attacks coming. He looked at the top of the mountain and waited for a full cup of tea's time, but there was no more movement at the top of the mountain. The snow was gone, and the snow lotus was gone. The entire mountain was bare, no different from other mountains. As for the cold mist, it had disappeared without a trace. After the ice crystals fell to the ground, they turned into drops of cold water and seeped into the mountain rocks. Oomph! Shaolin Yu coldly snorted. He did not want to waste time here, so he put away the 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs and turned to leave. Just as Shaolin Yu turned around, a cold mist appeared behind him. When he turned around again, it had already wrapped around him. I knew it would be like this. With a thought, Shaolin Yu's primal chaos true flame appeared around him. When the cold mist met the primal chaos true flame, the two emitted a faint crackling sound. Neither could do anything to the other. Shaolin Yu then poured his power into the silver moon broken blade. Immediately, a blade light appeared. Then, he swung the silver moon broken blade in a circle around him. The cold mist that enveloped the surroundings suddenly shrank and then began to dissipate. Everything returned to normal after 2 breaths of time. There was no abnormality in the surroundings. Shaolin Yu was also very helpless. After waiting for a while, he did not want to waste any more time and quickly left. However, every time he flew a certain distance, the cold mist would appear again. It was like a maggot attached to a bone. If he stopped to attack, the cold mist would dissipate on its own. After a few times, Shaolin Yu could not shake off the cold mist even if he increased his speed. Fortunately, he did not pay attention to it. In any case, the cold mist's various attacks were not a threat to him. He only cared about flying with all his might. After a few more days, Shaolin Yu's mind saw another mountain covered in snow and countless snow lotuses. This time, Shaolin Yu did not go up to check it out. He even went around it from afar. But what he didn't expect was that the cold mist that was following behind him suddenly emitted a strange sound, and then the snow and lotus on the mountain peak not far away suddenly disappeared. Xiao Yu felt a headache coming on because there was another wave of cold mist following behind him. The two cold mists constantly attacked Xiao Yu, but they were still unable to do anything to Xiao Yu. They just kept on chasing him. Xiao Yu could not do anything about it. In the following days, Xiao Yu would see a mountain covered in snow and snow lotuses every once in a while. The cold mist behind him also increased. Although the cold mist could not hurt him, it could slow down his speed. Xiao Yu was very troubled. Other than continuing to move forward and trying to speed up to shake off the cold mist, he could only stop occasionally and attack randomly to vent his anger. After nearly 20 years, there are now countless strands of cold mist surrounding Xiao Yu. They joined together like a sea of mist, vast and mighty. From time to time, they would let out strange cries that could frighten one's soul. Although they could shout, Xiao Yu could not sense any signs of life from them. There was too much cold fog in the surroundings, and Xiao Yu, who was not familiar with this independent space at all, naturally gradually lost the direction he had been moving in. Now, he was flying in the direction where the frequency of the cold fog was low, because he knew that danger would definitely come. The cold fog would definitely not simply follow him, so he had to conserve his power and try to face the danger in his best condition. However, Xiao Yu was also very worried. If he continued to move forward like this, it would be easy for the cold mist to block him from going where they wanted him to go. More than 10 years passed like this. Xiao Yu was forced to the front of a gully of unknown width. When the cold mist reached here, they all stopped behind him, as if they did not dare to get too close to this gully. It seems like there's something going on here. I wonder why they forced me here. Xiao Yu frowned as he looked at the gully, puzzled. The gully in front of him should be very deep. It was filled with cold mist, making it difficult for him to see too far. Even his consciousness was greatly restricted. Although Xiao Yu had already lost his patience and wanted very, very much to get rid of the cold mist, he knew that there was a problem ahead. He felt that he should not attempt to leap over this gully and follow the instructions of the cold mist. However, the cold mist stopped behind him for a moment, then madly rushed toward Xiao Yu. Even though Xiao Yu used all his strength to resist, he was still pushed down. Chapter 342. There was a strong suction force at the bottom of the gully, causing Xiao Yu to fall down. Not to mention Xiao Yu, even the drifting cold fog was pulled down when it reached the top of the gully. Bang! Xiao Yu fell to the bottom of the gully and felt a sharp pain all over his body. There was also the sound of bones breaking, followed by waves of cold. The bottom of the gully was actually a thick and hard layer of ice. What was even more frightening was that Xiao Yu, who had the chaotic primordial fire circulating all over his body, felt a bone-chilling cold. As for the cold mist, after it landed, it all turned into mist and seeped into the layer of ice. After resting on the ice for a while and taking a healing elixir, Xiao Yu endured the pain and stood up. When Xiao Chun looked around, all he could see was a flat layer of ice. Cold chi rose up in spirals. Why is it so cold here? And why is there such a strong suction force? Xiao Yu looked around and asked in confusion. Not long after, he turned around and looked at the cliff covered in ice. He muttered to himself for a while. The strange cold was unbearable. Xiao Yu did not dawdle for too long. After muttering to himself, he took out the silver moon broken sword and walked to the bottom of the cliff. Holding the silver moon broken sword high, Xiao Yu carved a small cave above his head and climbed up. Although the suction force here was strong, it was still easy for him to climb up 2 meters. After climbing into the small cave, he raised the silver moon broken sword high again and carved a small cave above his head. He climbed in again. Repeating this countless times, Xiao Yu used more than half a year to climb to the top of the cliff. But just as he reached the position where he had fallen, the cold fog rushed up again and pushed him to the bottom of the cliff in the blink of an eye. More than half a year of hard work was in vain. Shaoling Yu fell to the bottom of the cliff again and broke a few bones. The way back has been blocked by the cold fog. It seems that I can only go forward. After recovering from her injuries, Shaoling Yu walked slowly with her back to the cliff with a gloomy expression. He knew that there must be a cliff in front of him. He had to climb over the cliff in front of him to leave this gully. What he couldn't be sure of was whether or not there were also countless cold mists with consciousness guarding the opposite cliff. The ice at the bottom of the cliff was very quiet. Shaoling Yu walked slowly and did not encounter any obstacles or danger. However, as time passed and he got closer and closer to the center of the bottom of the cliff, he could clearly feel that the suction force from the ice surface was getting stronger and stronger, and the surrounding temperature was getting lower and lower. Shaoling Yu's speed became slower and slower. Furthermore, the coldness that entered his body was gradually becoming unbearable. However, there was no sign of the cliff on the other side. If this goes on, I'll probably be frozen into an ice sculpture before I reach the other side. Shaoling Yu did not dare to continue forward. She first turned around and walked back for a while before stopping to think for a long time. What the hell is this place? Unable to come up with a solution, Shaoling Yu could not help but curse. I'd better change my direction. In the end, Shaoling Yu stopped moving forward and walked to his left. The suction force from the ice surface and the surrounding temperature did not change at all. Shaoling Yu had walked for almost 2 months and still had not reached the end. He also did not discover any abnormalities. It seems that I have to walk with my back facing the cliff to find a way out. Shaoling Yu stopped and turned to the right. However, not long after, he stopped again because the suction force was too strong and the temperature was too low. I like to see what's going on below. Flustered and exasperated, Shaoling Yu slashed the ground with his silver moon broken sword. Although the ground was extremely hard, and even a supreme-grade demon weapon could only leave a shallow white mark on it, it was still unable to withstand the attack of a high-level divine weapon. With one slash, a crack that was 1 foot long and 2 fingers wide and half a foot deep appeared on the ice surface. However, cold air gushed out from the crack, and it actually recovered on its own. Shaoling Yu waved the silver moon broken sword in his hand repeatedly. The speed at which the ice surface recovered was far slower than the speed at which Shaoling Yu destroyed it. As a result, the crack on the ice surface naturally became bigger and deeper. Shaoling Yu, who was forced into a corner, did not stop. He continued to slash at the crack and would not stop until he reached the deepest part of the ice surface. Fortunately, even if he kept going down, the strange cold and suction force from the ice surface did not change at all. Thus, Shaoling Yu was able to continue. The layer of ice was so thick that it took Shaoling Yu a full year to reach the bottom of the ice layer, even with the help of a divine weapon. What disappointed him was that the bottom of the ice surface was frozen soil, and there was nothing unusual about it. As he moved forward from the bottom, the temperature would also drop to an unbearable level, and the gravity would also continue to increase. Helpless, Shaoling Yu could only slash at the frozen soil with his silver moon broken sword and continue downward. It took another year for the frozen soil to reach the bottom. However, the temperature and gravity did not change, and Shaoling Yu was still unable to move forward. However, to Shaoling Yu's delight, as he continued downward, the temperature became higher and the gravity became weaker. After digging for less than half a month, the temperature in the depths of the ice surface had returned to normal, and the gravity was not much different from the other parts of this independent space. Then, Shaoling Yu did not continue downward. Instead, he waved his silver moon broken sword forward. As he moved forward, the temperature and gravity remained normal. Shaoling Yu heaved a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, he had a divine weapon like the silver moon broken sword. Otherwise, he did not know how long he would have been trapped on this ice surface. The quality of the soil below wasn't too high. Shaoling Yu used the divine artifact to open a path, so his speed wasn't too slow. However, about half a year later, he discovered gloomily that the gravity was increasing and the temperature was dropping rapidly. He continued to dig downward. However, what Shaoling Yu did not expect was that even when he had already dug deep into the magma, the surrounding gravity and temperature were still the same, making it difficult for him to continue forward. What made him even more curious was that the magma should have been boiling hot, but it was clearly emitting flames, but it was extremely cold. What should I do? Do I have to jump into the magma and continue digging? Xiao Lingyu was distressed. There was no better way. Xiao Lingyu finally made up his mind to continue digging under the magma. Just as Xiao Lingyu was about to jump down, a strange cold flame swept towards him. He almost instinctively waved his silver moon broken sword in his hand and slashed at the flame. At the same time, the primordial fire formed a circle of protection around him. The silver moon broken sword, which was bursting with primordial sword radiance, only split the flame into two. However, it could not prevent Xiao Lingyu from being enveloped by the flame. Fortunately, the quality of the primordial fire was not low. It helped Xiao Lingyu block all the flame outside. Xiao Lingyu took the opportunity to quickly wave his silver moon broken sword and split the flame into streaks of light that filled the sky. The strange thing was that the streaks of light that were originally scattered actually gathered together after a moment and formed a flame again. It turned into a long spear that was emitting flames and pierced towards Xiao Lingyu. The long spear seemed to be mighty, but under the slash of the silver moon broken sword, it once again collapsed and scattered. However, it fell into the magma and disappeared. The characteristics of this flame were very similar to the cold fog. Xiao Lingyu waited for a while and was about to act according to his original plan. Suddenly, countless flames appeared from the surface of the magma. What surprised Xiao Lingyu even more was that these flames actually let out a strange cry at the same time, and then all of them surged towards him. Those strange cries were exactly the same as the cries of the cold fog that the snow and snow lotus had turned into. Xiao Lingyu felt a headache coming on. He hurriedly jumped up and retreated along the tunnel that he had dug. Those flames chased him all the way to the surface of the ice layer before retreating like tide. It seemed that they were unwilling to come to the surface of the ice layer. Still unable to continue forward, even the way down was blocked. Xiao Lingyu felt that he had fallen into a hopeless situation that was not too dangerous. His expression kept changing. After a long time, Xiao Lingyu resolutely jumped into the tunnel that he had dug and kept going down. When he reached the sky above the magma, countless waves of fire surged again, like countless malicious spirits that wanted to take his life. Xiao Lingyu did not retreat again. Instead, he waved the silver moon broken sword in his hand to block them and fell into the magma at the same time. But then, he was surrounded by countless waves of fire. Those waves of fire crazily pounced on him, making it difficult for him to dive down and retreat. Although Xiao Lingyu did not consume much energy by constantly releasing the primal chaos true fire and waving the silver moon broken sword, it was definitely difficult for him to persist for too long. And after persevering for a while, he realized that these waves of fire seemed to want to force him in a certain direction. Now that there was no way out, Xiao Lingyu did not have any good ideas. Fortunately, he just let go and moved forward according to the will of these waves of fire. I'd like to see what kind of tricks you guys have up your sleeves. Xiao Lingyu hardened his resolve. Like this, a full half a year passed. In order to reduce his energy consumption, Xiao Lingyu only defended and did not counterattack. Finally, he was brought in front of a ball of fire. However, although it looked like it was in front of him, it was actually still very far away. It was just that the ball of fire was very big, so it could be seen very clearly from afar. Along the way, Xiao Lingyu realized that he had actually advanced a very long distance. Originally, after advancing for such a long time, he should have been unable to withstand the gravity and strange cold. However, the flames seemed to have a safer path. Under their guidance, Xiao Lingyu had advanced for half a year, but the surrounding temperature and gravity were all within a range that he could withstand. At this point, the flames no longer approached Xiao Lingyu and did not dare to take half a step forward. Xiao Lingyu also did not dare to continue forward. Instead, he stared at the ball of fire. Chapter 343. Although there were no more flames, the surrounding temperature and gravity were still normal. It was no different from the outside world. However, that ball of fire and Shaoling Yu's surroundings were protected by countless fiery lights. Shaoling Yu couldn't easily retreat. "It seems that the key to the problem lies with you," Shaoling Yu said calmly as she stared at the ball of flames. Waiting was not a solution. After observing for a while, Shaoling Yu braced herself and walked toward the ball of flames. The closer she got to the ball of flames, the stranger Shaoling Yu felt because there were two completely different auras coming from it. Sensing it carefully, Shaoling Yu was very familiar with one of the auras. It was the pure aura of the demonic flames. As for the other aura, Shaoling Yu was not very familiar with it. However, she could tell that it was a pure ice-type aura. Moreover, there were some fluctuations of immortal spiritual power in the ice-type aura. The demonic flames obviously came from that ball of flames, while the icy aura that carried the immortal aura definitely came from that treasure within the flames. The attributes of the two were polar opposites. Yet at this moment, Shaoling Yu could imagine that this ball of demonic flames, which was more invasive, wanted to refine or corrode that icy treasure, or suppress or seal it. After getting closer, Shaoling Yu could clearly see the shape of the ice-type treasure in the demonic flames. It was a diamond-shaped crystal about the size of a palm. Ice marrow. Shaoling Yu's heart trembled because the appearance of the crystal was exactly the same as the ice quintessence. Shaoling Yu had once obtained a piece of ice marrow in the cultivation world's Feiyu continent. However, that piece of ice marrow was worlds apart from this one. The ice marrow in the cultivation world was the essence of ice in the cultivation world. Its value and quality were comparable to immortal treasures. However, the ice marrow here was comparable to a godly treasure. No wonder the layer of ice above was so solid and the temperature so low. It turned out that there was a piece of ice marrow below. Even though the ice marrow was wrapped in demonic flames, it could faintly emit a cold air. It could form a layer of ice that was comparable to a supreme-grade demonic weapon. One could imagine how high its quality was. As for the gravitational force, it was most likely caused by the battle between the ice essence and the demonic flame. It was precisely because of this that the two high-grade existences were fighting and suppressing each other that the surroundings were so peaceful. In the process of their battle, the energy that leaked out or the special effects that formed would only manifest when they were a certain distance away. Very soon, Shaoling Yu was less than 10 meters away from the devil flames. The flames, which had been emitting strange cries from time to time, had all quieted down. The flames seemed to be very nervous at this moment, even more so than Shaoling Yu. However, Shaoling Yu did not know what to do at this moment. Regardless of whether it was the demonic flame or the frost essence, if they were sentient existences, Shaoling Yu would not dare to provoke either of them. The power of these two existences was at least comparable to that of an early-stage Honorable Rel powerhouse. However, if he didn't do anything, he wouldn't be able to leave this place. Shaoling Yu stood in front of the demonic flame for a long time. In the end, he made up his mind and poured his power into the silver moon broken sword. Then, a rainbow-colored firebird pounced out and flew towards the demonic flame. The rainbow-colored firebird's power was definitely stronger than any supreme-grade demonic weapon. It was also stronger than those quasi-divine weapons. As for whether it could compare to a real divine weapon, Shaoling Yu did not know. As if feeling the threat from the rainbow-colored firebird, the demonic flame suddenly released a wave of fire. The wave of fire quickly turned into a fire snake and tangled with the rainbow-colored firebird. In the end, they both dissipated at the same time. The demonic flame was actually able to easily block the rainbow-colored firebird's attack. And from the fact that it could block it, it could be seen that it did indeed have a consciousness. Just as the rainbow-colored firebird dissipated, the demonic flame actually shot out another fire snake. In the blink of an eye, it had already pounced in front of Shaoling Yu. Shaoling Yu did not have time to activate the silver moon broken sword to release the rainbow-colored firebird again. However, the sixth demon, suppressing immortal orbs, had already formed a divine light sword and slashed towards the fire snake. The divine light sword's attack power was only slightly stronger than that of a supreme-grade demonic weapon. Naturally, it could not block the fire snake and could only weaken its power. The weakened fire serpents were then dispersed by the chaotic demonic seal that Shaolin Yu had unleashed. But then, in an instant, 7 fire snakes appeared again, making Shaolin Yu's scalp tingle. Blocking one fire snake required all his strength. Shaolin Yu estimated that he would not be able to block all 7 of them together. Before the 7 fire snakes could pounce out, the demonic flame suddenly shook, and waves of icy cold aura surged out from within. The ice essence was trembling violently in the demonic flame, causing the demonic flame to tremble. It was obvious that the demonic flame's attack on Shaolin Yu had weakened its power to suppress the ice essence. The ice essence was trying to break free. The ice essence's resistance caused the demonic flame to tremble violently. The 7 fire snakes were unable to attack Shaolin Yu and quickly returned to the demonic flame. From this, it could be seen that the demonic flame was only slightly stronger than the ice essence. If it split its power, it would be difficult to continue suppressing the ice essence. When the 7 fire snakes disappeared, Shaolin Yu let out a long sigh of relief. The reason he attacked was not to help the ice essence break free, but to change the situation a little and find an opportunity to leave. The ice essence seemed to have found an opportunity to break free. It kept pulsing in the demonic flame, causing the demonic flame to constantly change shape. Shaolin Yu hesitated for a moment, but still decided to help the ice essence. Thus, the silver moon-broken sword shot out another rainbow-colored firebird. The demonic flame then split off a fire snake to block it. The fire snake and the rainbow-colored firebird collided and dissipated at the same time. Shaolin Yu continued to shoot out rainbow-colored firebirds and even used the primal chaos devil seal to support his attacks. In this way, Shaolin Yu's rainbow-colored firebirds could continuously consume the demonic flame's power, and the ice essence pulsed more and more violently. The demonic flame had some consciousness after all. It knew that if this continued, it would be very disadvantageous to itself. However, it did not have a good solution. When it was certain that it could no longer suppress the ice essence, it took the initiative to abandon the ice essence and turned into a fire snake that pounced towards Shaolin Yu. In the demonic flame's view, the reason it could not suppress the ice essence was because of this human cultivator causing trouble. Thus, it had to kill this human cultivator first. Shaolin Yu found it difficult to block a few fire snakes, so it was even more impossible for Shaolin Yu to block the entire demonic flame. First, he shot out rainbow-colored firebirds, then used the 6 devil-suppressing immortal orbs to help block it. Then he shot out the primal chaos devil seal. It was a pity that these attacks, which no demon monarch level expert dared to underestimate, were completely useless in front of the demonic flame. The moment they came into contact with the demonic flame, they were immediately destroyed, and the demonic flame's power did not decrease in the slightest as it continued to advance. It's over this time. As the heat wave rushed towards him, Shaolin Yu actually felt a sense of despair. Before the demonic flame could wreak havoc on Shaolin Yu's body, the ice essence that had just regained its freedom released a wave of cold mist that swept towards Shaolin Yu at the same time. One cold and one hot. Acting on Shaolin Yu's body at the same time, the two quickly neutralized, and Shaolin Yu was completely unharmed. This ice essence still has some conscience. Shaolin Yu found that he was unharmed and praised happily. At this moment, the demonic flame and the cold mist enveloped Shaolin Yu's body at the same time, but he did not feel anything strange at all. However, he did not dare to move recklessly. As for the sentient flames that were originally surrounding the area, after a series of strange cries, they all rushed towards Shaolin Yu. However, what made Shaolin Yu feel a little strange was that after these flames rushed over, they all strengthened the ice essence's power and did their best to suppress the demonic flame. Although these flames did not have much of an effect on the demonic flame, there were too many of them. As they came one after another, they could also help the ice essence counter the demonic flame. After a full 4 hours, all of the flames were wiped out by the demonic flame, but at this moment, countless amounts of cold mist surged over, still aiding the ice essence. The ground was collapsing, and the thick layer of ice on the ground was rapidly melting. Waves of cold energy continuously gathered towards the ice essence. The cold aura around Xiao Lingyu grew thicker and thicker, while the fiery aura grew weaker and weaker. The demonic flame saw that the situation was unfavorable and immediately wanted to escape from Xiao Lingyu's body. Unfortunately, the surroundings were already surrounded by boundless cold energy. The dense cold energy continuously surged over, making it impossible for the demonic flame to escape. The demonic flame probably did not expect that after so many years of painstakingly suppressing the ice essence, it would be suppressed and sealed in the end. As for the ice essence, it was more like it had been enduring patiently for many years. Previously, it had been painstakingly waiting for a counterattack. Once it counterattacked, it would be as powerful as a thunderbolt. Xiao Lingyu's appearance and Xiao Lingyu's attack on the demonic flame seemed to have given the ice essence an opportunity. Perhaps it had also awakened the ice essence's fighting spirit. No matter how hard the demonic flame struggled, it was futile. Boundless waves of cold continuously surged over, firmly locking it in place, unable to move an inch. Fortunately, the demonic flame had always been around Xiao Lingyu. Otherwise, the cold energy from the ice essence would definitely have frozen his body in an instant. However, the ice essence's power was too strong at this time. The strange cold had already suppressed the demonic flame's high temperature. Xiao Lingyu also felt that the surroundings were too cold. Even though he was surrounded by the demonic flame, his body was still covered in frost. As a result, Xiao Lingyu had no choice but to once again circulate the primal chaos true fire to raise the temperature of his body. The ice essence continuously spewed out waves of cold mist, continuously whittling away the demonic flame's power. With the boundless cold energy supporting the ice essence did not seem to be consumed much, but the demonic flame was growing weaker and weaker. At this time, Xiao Lingyu could see clearly that the ice essence was not trying to help him deal with the demonic flame's threat. Instead, it did not want the ice essence to escape. The ice essence also wanted to refine the demonic flame. Chapter 344. Indeed, the Frost Marrow had no intention of taking care of Xiao Lingyu. It only wanted to seize the opportunity to leave the demonic flames behind and refine them. As for whether Xiao Lingyu was alive or dead, it did not care at all. Over the years, many cultivators have been brought here by the cold fog and flames, but almost none of them have been able to pose the slightest threat to the demonic flames. The cold marrow essence had waited for so many years for this chance, and it absolutely wouldn't let it go to waste. This was an independent space, and cultivators from both the immortal and demon realms were restricted from entering. It was very difficult for cultivators who had not reached the mystic demon realm to reach this place, and even if they did, it would be difficult for them to pose a threat to the demonic flames. Only a freak like Xiao Lingyu could stabilize the demonic flames without reaching the mystic demon realm. Gradually, the demonic flames seemed to know that they could not escape today. After resisting for a while, they automatically merged with Xiao Lingyu's primal chaos fire. Originally, with Xiao Lingyu's current ability, he would not be able to refine such a high-level demonic flame, and his body would not be able to withstand the impact of the demonic flames. However, the demonic flames took the initiative to submit to him, and its power was greatly restricted by the cold air. The primal chaos fire was also a high-level fire seed, so the demonic flames could merge with the primal chaos fire. After the two high-level flames merged, the quality of the primal chaos fire was greatly improved, and it could easily resist the attack of the cold air. However, The demonic flames actually counterattacked the primal chaos fire and showed signs of directly killing Shaoling Yu. Only by killing Shaoling Yu could the primal chaos fire be in an ownerless state, and the demonic flames would regain their freedom and not be restricted in the slightest. Although Shaoling Yu did not want to see this happen, he was powerless to stop it. However, just like Shaoling Yu, the Frost Marrow did not want to see this happen either. If the primal chaos fire was completely subdued by the demonic flames and the two perfectly merged, the Frost Marrow would definitely be the next unlucky one. Therefore, the Frost Marrow flew to Shaoling Yu's head and gathered boundless cold energy, pouring it into Shaoling Yu's body. Shaoling Yu's body was already in an extremely troublesome situation. Naturally, he did not have the strength nor the will to resist the frost chi entering his body. He only allowed the chaos demonic nascent soul to release the primordial true fire with all its might. Fortunately, Shaoling Yu's body was extremely strong. Otherwise, if it was an ordinary cultivator, their vitality would have withered the moment the strange cold entered their body. After the cold energy entered her body, it did not destroy Shaoling Yu's body. Instead, it went straight for the primordial fire that had merged with the demon flames. Shaoling Yu's body was warring with heat and cold. Shaoling Yu's expression was extremely pained, but he knew that he had to hold on. The strange cold energy did not have much interest in the primal chaos true fire, but it was extremely disgusted by the devil flame, and almost all of its power was used on the devil flame. Although the devil flame took the initiative to merge with the primordial true fire, without Shaoling Yu's cooperation, it was impossible for the devil flame to merge with the primordial true fire. This also allowed the strange cold energy to easily distinguish its target. Under the suppression of the strange cold energy, the devil flame could only deal with it tiredly. Shaoling Yu made up his mind and allowed the chaos demonic nascent soul to spew out all of the primordial true fire. He also wrapped his own blood essence and soul to refine the devil flame. The devil flame could have withdrawn from Shaoling Yu's body and separated from the primordial true fire. However, if it did, it would be directly captured and refined by the Frost Marrow. It could only continue to stay in the primordial true fire and continue refining the primordial true fire. Unfortunately, the devil flame's refining power on the primordial true fire was completely destroyed by the cold energy. Instead, it was the primordial true fire that was slowly refining it. Just like this, a full 3 days passed. The primordial true fire had already refined 1/3 of the devil flame. The remaining 2/3 of the devil flame that still had its own consciousness knew that it would be completely refined sooner or later. Therefore, it had no choice but to leave the primordial true fire. Just as Shaoling Yu expected, the remaining 2/3 of the devil flame was wrapped by the cold energy as soon as it left his body. No matter how hard it struggled, it could not break free. In the end, it could only be absorbed by the Frost Marrow. The Frost Marrow was still of the ice attribute. However, the originally sparkling and translucent Frost Marrow was constantly flashing with bursts of fire. It was very strange. Whether it was the cold fog formed by the snow and snow lotuses or the flames in the magma, they were all absorbed by the Frost Marrow. The ice layer and the frozen soil layer had already collapsed. Shaoling Yu looked around again and could only see a large pit. Shaoling Yu did not dare to move. He stared at the Frost Marrow cautiously while feeling the changes in the primordial true fire. The changes in the primordial true fire were not very big. At least, it did not look much different from before. However, its power had increased a lot. It was estimated that it was not much weaker than the multicolored firebird activated by the silver moon broken blade. In this way, Shaoling Yu would have another life-saving trump card. However, compared to this frost essence, this trump card was not even worth mentioning. The reason why he did not dare to move was that Shaoling Yu could clearly feel that there was a very strong consciousness locked onto him. Moreover, it revealed a somewhat dangerous aura. He knew that as long as he moved, the Frost Marrow would definitely attack him. At this time, The frost marrow did not attack. He did not know what it was hesitating about or if it was not in a good state. Xiao Yu guessed that the frost quintessence had just absorbed the devil flame and was in the process of refining it. Its condition wasn't very good, so it didn't attack him. Once the frost quintessence completely refined the devil flame, it would most likely attack him. However, even if he knew this, he did not dare to move. This was because even if he was not in a good state, the frost marrow could easily freeze him. This wait lasted for 3 months. Xiao Yu was like a prisoner waiting to be convicted. His heart was anxious, but there was nothing he could do. After 3 months, the frost marrow finally completely refined the devil flame. Then, a strong wave of consciousness enveloped Xiao Yu's body, as if it wanted to understand Xiao Yu's body in detail. However, although the frost marrow was strong, it was not a human cultivator and had not cultivated systematically. It was very difficult for its consciousness to penetrate Xiao Yu's body. It could only determine Xiao Yu's true level by looking at the surface of Xiao Yu's body and the aura that leaked out. In the end, the frost marrow seemed to have lost its patience. Its powerful consciousness invaded Xiao Yu's body and rushed directly into Xiao Yu's knowledge sea. The grayish-black metal piece hidden in Xiao Yu's knowledge sea suddenly shook and absorbed the frost marrow's consciousness. After all, the frost marrow was not a living thing in the past. It had only slowly formed its consciousness over the years. Xiao Yu guessed that it wanted to possess him. It wanted to directly devour his soul and take over his body. However, it did not realize that his soul was not in his knowledge sea. Like a normal cultivator, the frost marrow poured all of its consciousness into Xiao Yu's knowledge sea. However, all of it was mercilessly devoured by the grayish-black metal piece. After losing all of its consciousness, the frost marrow fell from the air and automatically emitted a strange chill. Xiao Yu reacted quickly. He immediately released the recently upgraded primordial flame to protect his body. Then he took out a high-grade jade box and put the frost marrow inside. High-grade jade boxes all had the miraculous effect of isolating energy fluctuations, which was why cultivators like to use them to store all kinds of treasures. This kind of jade box wasn't very useful for a cultivator's cultivation, but every high-grade cultivator would carry a few of them with them. Xiao Yu let out a long breath and put the jade box into his storage magic treasure. After a long time, he calmed down. It was another life and death experience. However, for people like Xiao Yu who often walked on the edge of life and death, they could face it calmly and quickly recover. After meditating for 3 days, Xiao Yu stood up straight and flew in a direction at full speed. The cold and gravity in the gully disappeared. Xiao Yu quickly reached the foot of the cliff and jumped to the top. There was no cold fog here. The path ahead was smooth. Xiao Yu continued forward. He carefully traveled for nearly 500 years. He did not want to cause trouble, nor did he want to seek opportunities. He did not encounter any real threats. After all, this independent space limited one's cultivation. If there were too many dangers that Xiao Yu could not deal with, those cultivators below the mystic demon realm would not be able to come out alive. After 500 years, Xiao Yu thought that he would need at least 1 or 200 years to meet a cultivator from the immortal world. However, he unexpectedly met one in advance. That cultivator from the immortal world looked young. He had delicate features and wore a white brocade robe with a blue belt around his waist. He was originally a carefree person, but now he looked very miserable. This was because there were 3 demonic beasts that looked like scorpions following behind him. Moreover, those 3 demonic beasts had the cultivation of late-stage spirit demon realm. Under Xiao Yu's intent, that young cultivator's cultivation characteristics and aura could not be concealed. Xiao Yu felt that he was from the immortal world when he sensed the rich immortal spiritual energy on his body. Knowing that the young cultivator from the immortal world was only at the late-stage spirit demon realm, Xiao Yu approached him with ease. He waved his hand and shot out 3 streams of light, killing the 3 demonic beasts. Seeing Xiao Yu help him kill off the enemy, the young cultivator felt very grateful. However, when he sensed the demonic aura coming from the three exploding streams of light, he could not stop his heart from tensing up, and he became highly vigilant. "Brother, thank you for your help." Although the young cultivator was nervous, he could only bite the bullet and cupped his fist politely when he saw that the other party was approaching. The other party could kill 3 late-stage spirit, demon, demonic beasts with a wave of his hand. The young cultivator knew that he was far inferior to the other party, so he knew that he could not escape. Xiaoling Yu flew closer and said with a smile, "Haha, it's nothing. You don't have to mention it. Brother, you must be a fellow Taoist from the demon world, right?" The young cultivator asked with a complicated expression. "That's right. However, you don't have to be nervous. Although I'm from the demon world, I don't discriminate between immortals and demons in my heart. Since I helped you just now, I naturally won't be your enemy." Xiaoling Yu nodded and replied, "Brother, you must have a reason for helping me, right?" The young cultivator asked directly. "There is indeed a small matter that I need your help with," Xiaoling Yu replied. Chapter 345. It's nothing big. I just want to ask you to lead the way to the immortal world, Xiaoling Yu said casually. "Go to the immortal world? Brother, you're from the demon world. Why are you going to the immortal world?" "Brother, please don't misunderstand. I don't mean to pry into anything. It's just that if you go to the immortal world, you'll meet many experts from the immortal world at the exit," the young cultivator explained after being surprised. "Haha, don't worry, brother. I have my ways to conceal myself. I won't bring you any trouble," Xiaoling Yu said with a smile. "There are many immortal emperors at the exit. It's hard to fool them with ordinary concealment methods," the young cultivator reminded. "Even immortal supremes won't be able to discover my concealment method if they don't look carefully," Xiaoling Yu said confidently. "If that's the case, we can give it a try. After all, immortal supremes won't be guarding the exit. They're all very busy with the war between the immortal world and the demon world," the young cultivator nodded. "Then I'll have to trouble you, brother," Xiaoling Yu said politely. "It's just that I still have something to deal with." "Brother, can you wait for a while?" the young cultivator said with a troubled expression. "That's fine. Brother, you can deal with your own matters first. I'm not in a hurry," Xiaoling Yu said generously. "If you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to ask. Brother, you've already helped me get rid of the 3 scorpion beasts. The rest is much simpler. Brother, you don't have to do anything. I can do it myself." The young cultivator pointed in the direction he came from and said, "There's a nest of scorpion beasts over there. There's a fire crystal in it. We can return once we get it." "Then let's not delay any longer. Let's go," Xiaoling Yu said decisively. "All right." As he flew, he said to Xiaoling Yu, who was following closely behind him, "Previously, there were 3 late-stage, overarching, heavenly supreme, celestial scorpion beasts guarding the nest. I wanted to lure them away before coming back to retrieve the fire crystal. However, I didn't expect the scorpion beast to be able to keep up with me. Now that you've killed the 3 late-stage, overarching, heavenly supreme, celestial scorpion beasts, it'll be a piece of cake for me to retrieve the fire crystal." What made Xiaoling Yu curious was the young man's speed was comparable to a late, overarching, heavenly supreme celestial. Although the young man's cultivation base was only comparable to a late, overarching, heavenly supreme celestial, his cultivation base was comparable to a late, overarching, heavenly supreme celestial. It only took the 2 of them an hour to stop at the foot of a mountain that was covered in flames. Looking over, the entire mountain was made up of red-hot rocks, giving off a heavy and scorching feeling. Around the mountain, there were countless caves. From afar, the entire mountain looked like a burning hornet's nest. The flames outside aren't very strong. We only need to set up a defensive light shield to block them. The flames will only grow stronger when we enter the mountain. It's quite a threat to cultivators below the 9 heavens mystic celestial stage. However, I'm sure you won't be afraid of flames of this level," the young man explained as he flew toward one of the caves. Sure enough, although the flames coming out of the mountain looked very frightening, they were actually not that powerful. At most, they could only melt a low-rank magic weapon. As they traveled through the caves, they encountered scorpion beasts. However, the scorpion beast cultivation bases were not high, so they could not cause them any trouble. After traveling for about 10 minutes, the two of them arrived at the heart of the mountain. The temperature in the surroundings was getting higher and higher. The young man kept increasing his defenses while Xiao Yu remained relaxed. Even the flames in the heart of the mountain paled in comparison to Xiao Yu's chaotic true fire. The flames grew stronger. The closer they got to the heart of the mountain, the stronger the scorpion beasts that came out to stop them. However, when they arrived at the heart of the mountain, the deepest part of the scorpion beast lair, the strongest scorpion beasts they encountered were only at the mid-stage, overarching heavenly supreme celestial stage. Even if Xiao Yu did not make a move, none of the scorpion beasts that came to stop them could withstand the young man's attack. There was a huge cave in the heart of the mountain. The cave was in the shape of a vertical oval. It was surrounded by numerous caves with countless scorpion beasts flying around. At the bottom of the cave, there was a reddish-brown gemstone that was 20 to 30 feet tall and 60 feet wide. This huge gemstone must be the fire crystal gemstone the young man had mentioned. Putting aside the quality of the gemstone, just its size alone was enough to make one envious. Xiao Yu scanned the gemstone with his divine sense, and was surprised to discover that the fire crystal gemstone's quality was not inferior to an ordinary supreme-grade devil treasure. It should be enough to refine a fire-type, supreme-grade celestial weapon. It was no wonder the young man was willing to take such a huge risk to obtain it. The young man was cautious. After scanning the surroundings with his celestial consciousness, he waved his hand to kill the scorpion beasts as he descended. Xiao Yu was not a careless person as well. He spread his divine sense to the fullest to grasp the situation around him. The two of them successfully landed at the bottom of the cave. The young man could not hide his excitement when he saw the huge fire crystal gemstone. However, just as the young cultivator's immortal sense wrapped around the fire crystal gem and was about to put it into his storage magic treasure, the fire crystal gem flew directly above their heads. Then, a scorpion beast bathed in fire ruthlessly smashed its two front claws like iron pincers at the two of them. The young man's cultivation base was not high, and he was too excited to defend himself. After all, the distance between them was too short. Moreover, it was clear that the scorpion beast cultivation base had surpassed the level of an overarching heavenly supreme celestial. The young man's heart skipped a beat when he saw the pincers were about to hit the two of them. A horrified expression appeared on his face when the pincers that were about to hit his head suddenly stopped. The young man hastily retreated a few dozen feet before he discovered that the pincers had been caught by two fleshy palms. The pincers could not move at all. The scorpion beast was smaller than an ordinary scorpion beast at the true devil stage. However, its aura had risen to the level of a late-stage mystical devil stage cultivator. It was only a step away from breaking through to the Devil Lord stage. Even so, Xiao Yu easily caught the scorpion beast's iron pincers, which looked as if they had been burned red by a raging fire. Oomph! Xiao Yu snorted coldly as he exerted force with his palms. A cracking sound rang in the air. The young cultivator was shocked to find that under the force of the two palms, terrifying cracks had appeared on the surface of the iron pincers. Roar! The scorpion beast roared in pain before it spat out a wave of fire from its mouth. Xiao Yu remained motionless despite the heat wave. A disdainful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he allowed the flames to burn his body. He was not harmed in the slightest. The young man's jaw dropped when he saw this. The scorpion beast's pincers were still in Xiao Yu's hands. In a fit of rage, it thrust its tail at Xiao Yu like a javelin. Xiao Yu released his grip on the scorpion beast's tail. Then, he leaped up and landed on the scorpion beast's back. Ha! With a loud shout, Xiao Yu grasped the scorpion tail tightly and stabbed it towards the scorpion beast's back. Although the scorpion beast's back was very hard, its tail was the hardest part of its body. Therefore, the scorpion beast's tail pierced through the scorpion beast's body and even went deep into the hard mountain rock below. Roar! The scorpion beast let out a miserable cry as it was injured by its tail. then it began to struggle violently. Although it took a long time to describe, from the moment the scorpion beast appeared to the moment it was heavily injured, the huge fire crystal was still in mid-air. It was only now that it started to fall. Xiaoling Yu only dodged when the fire crystal was above his head. The huge and heavy fire crystal smashed directly onto the scorpion beast's body. Boom! The fire crystal landed heavily, and the scorpion beast's fiery red blood splattered everywhere. The scorpion beast's two iron pincers kept slapping the ground a few times, and then there was no more movement. The young cultivator used his immortal sense to check and found that the scorpion beast with a 9-heaven Xian immortal cultivation had actually died on the spot. When the young cultivator looked at Xiaoling Yu again, not only was he grateful for Xiaoling Yu's help, but he was also shocked and puzzled. The young cultivator knew very well that cultivators who could enter this independent space were at most peak late-stage, overarching heavenly supreme celestials. Even if this Devil Dao cultivator was stronger than him, it would not be by much. However, when the young cultivator saw how easily Xiaoling Yu had killed the scorpion beast, a 9-heavens mystic celestial, he realized he had underestimated Xiaoling Yu's strength. This fire crystal might seem huge, but it's not very pure. I think the scorpion beast must have absorbed too much of its energy. You'll have to refine it after retrieving it. Xiaoling Yu did not look proud at all after killing the scorpion beast. Instead, he narrowed his eyes as he commented, "That scorpion beast was a 9-heavens mystic celestial. I can't defeat it. Brother, you've saved my life. How can I accept this fire crystal? Brother, please accept this fire crystal gem." The young cultivator was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly waved his hand. Xiaoling Yu shook his head and said with a smile, "This fire crystal is useless to me. You don't have to be so polite with me." The young cultivator braced himself and asked, "Brother, are you really a 9-heavens mystic celestial?" "Yes." Xiaoling Yu nodded and said, "Sometimes, one's cultivation base doesn't represent one's true strength." However, if he could find it through some major forces, things would be much simpler. In the immortal realm, there should be some organization or power that has its people spread across all the continents in the immortal realm, right? Just like the bounty hunters in the devil realm, Xiaoling Yu asked tentatively. Of course there is, but spreading across the entire immortal realm is a bit exaggerated. After all, there are many continents that lack resources to the extreme, or continents that are monopolized by major forces. Those major forces won't send people over. Luoja nodded in response. Then if I want to find someone, it's best to find that organization or power. Xiaoling Yu continued to ask. If you want to find someone, you can find the mercenaries or the spies, Luoja replied. Which of the two is better? Xiaoling Yu continued to ask. It's hard to say which one is better. The mercenaries are more formal, have a good reputation, and their overall strength is very strong. Although the fees aren't high, the efficiency is relatively slow. The spies are more mysterious, and their overall strength is far inferior to the mercenaries. However, they work very quickly, but their fees are very high. If they fail, they won't refund the immortal stones. Luoja explained carefully. The mercenaries should be easier to find, right? Xiaoling Yu asked again. Yes. Although these two organizations have people on every continent, the mercenaries have tall and imposing buildings, while the spies are hidden in the markets and are extremely difficult to find. Luoja nodded in response. If you want to issue a mission to find someone, and it's for the entire immortal realm, approximately how many immortal stones would it cost? Xiaoling Yu asked calmly. That depends on the cultivation base of the person you're looking for. If their cultivation base is high, they'll need more immortal stones. After all, the weaker the cultivation base, the easier it is to find them. If you're looking for a celestial sovereign or a celestial emperor, these people usually hide very deeply. The people from these two organizations can't easily come into contact with them. If you want to find them, you'll need to spend too much energy and time. Luozha thought for a moment before answering. The two of them continued to talk as they continued to move forward. At first, it was very calm. The two of them were focused and hurried on their journey. They didn't look for any opportunities, so their speed was very fast. However, after 100 years, it was easy for the two of them to encounter some cultivators from the immortal realm. Originally, the number of cultivators on their side gradually increased, so Luo should have been more relaxed. However, he became more and more nervous. Generally, he would choose to take a detour when he encountered others. With their cultivation base, they can't tell that I'm from the devil realm. Shaoling Yu reminded. The reason I don't want to face the cultivators from the immortal realm is not because I'm worried that they'll see through Brother Zhao's background, but because of myself. Luo shook his head and said, "Oh, why is that?" Shaoling Yu asked curiously. Because before I came in, I killed many people for the sake of obtaining a spot, and there was no lack of elite disciples of great powers among them. I was afraid that I would bump into them and be besieged by them. After all, if I died here, who would know how I died and who killed me? I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to get involved in meaningless battles. Luozha laughed dryly and explained. Since they had to be careful and avoid others, they naturally couldn't go too fast. At their current speed, Luozha estimated that it would take at least 500 to 600 years to reach the exit of the immortal realm. Shaoling Yu had waited for many years. Naturally, he didn't care about waiting for another few hundred years. He also didn't want to have a conflict with the big forces of the immortal realm before he reached the immortal realm. Therefore, he didn't care much about the speed and method of traveling. The two of them traveled together for more than 10 years. The frequency of meeting people from the immortal realm also increased. Luozha estimated that most of the cultivators from the immortal realm had arrived at their current location. Luozha wanted to continue moving forward with Shaoling Yu. However, not long after, he took out the communication Immortal Pearl and sank his consciousness into it. His expression changed slightly. "What's wrong?" Shaoling Yu asked. Dozens of fellow disciples came in with me. Right now, they're in big trouble and want me to go over and help. Luozha frowned and said, "Since it's a fellow disciple asking for help, of course we should go over and take a look." Shaoling Yu said generously, "I'm afraid this will take some time. Their current location is not on our way back. Moreover, it's very far away." Luozha seemed to be in a difficult position. That's simple. It's easy to find other immortals. I could find another person to lead the way for me." Shaoling Yu smiled lightly. Luozha paused and hesitated for a moment before saying, "My fellow disciples seem to have encountered a very difficult problem. Even if I go over and help, I'm afraid." Shaoling Yu heard this and smiled. "You want me to go with you, right?" Luozha's expression was slightly embarrassed. He cupped his fists and said, "If Brother Xiao can go, Luozha will be very grateful. If Brother Xiao has any errands in the future, our fire sect will definitely not refuse." Shaoling Yu withdrew his smile and seemed to consider it seriously. Then, he said, "All right, I can go over and take a look. However, if it's beyond my ability, I definitely won't force myself to help." Luozha's face was overjoyed. After thanking him, he adjusted his route and began to fly at full speed. The reason why Shaoling Yu agreed to Luozha's request was that, firstly, he felt that Luozha was a good person. Secondly, he felt that it would be good to have the fire sect owe him a favor. The fire sect in the immortal world was not a super sect, but it could definitely be considered a first-class wealthy family. Luozha had said before that the strongest in the immortal world were naturally venerable realm experts or forces with venerable realm experts. They were considered the top existences in the immortal world, and the fire sect was second only to these top forces. The fire sect did not have any venerable realm experts, but it had many immortal emperors. Moreover, it had been passed down since ancient times and had a strong influence in the immortal world. Before the two of them could fly to their destination, they were stopped a few days later. "Luozha, I really didn't expect that you would fly here by yourself after we've been looking for you for hundreds of years. There were nearly 100 people on the other side, and one of them said with a strange smile. Luo's expression was slightly gloomy as he said, "You people from the Qianling sect can only show off when there are many of you. Who dares to come out in a one-on-one battle?" There were too many people on the other side, and almost all of them were late-stage, overarching heavenly supreme celestials. The advantage was too obvious. Although Luo knew Xiao Lingyu was very strong, he felt that the most he could do was run away. After all, he did not know how strong Xiao Lingyu was. Xiao Lingyu was very calm. His expression was calm, and he did not show any emotion. Although he could guess that Luo had a grudge against the people from the Qianling sect, he did not have much intention to fight. One-on-one? What a joke. There are so many of us. How can we fight you one-on-one? The person on the other side said with a laugh. Luo just sent a voice transmission to Xiao Lingyu. "If there's any danger later, Brother Xiao, you can leave on your own. Don't worry about me." They had not made a move yet because none of them could see through Xiao Lingyu's cultivation base. Therefore, they did not dare to make a move recklessly. However, they knew one had to be a nine heavens mystic celestial to enter this place. Since there were so many people on the other side, naturally, they were not afraid of any cultivators below the nine heavens mystic celestial realm. Upon hearing Luo's voice transmission, Xiao Lingyu only smiled and did not say anything. One of the people on the other side asked Xiao Lingyu, "Fellow Taoist, are you from the fire sect as well?" "No," Xiao Lingyu said as he shook his head. Luo's heart skipped a beat. He knew what the person on the other side was going to say. "We only want Luo's life. This matter has nothing to do with you. You can leave on your own," the person on the other side said generously. Xiao Lingyu said with a smile, "Luo and I have a good relationship. I won't allow you to take his life. Since you refuse a toast, only to be forced to drink a forfeit, you'll die as well." Chapter 347. There were nearly 100 people on the other side. They quickly spread out and surrounded Xiao Lingyu and Luo. In an instant, the radiance of the Dharma treasures and immortal talismans blossomed into a beautiful and dangerous color. It was as if countless life-reaping arrows were flying through the sky. Xiao Lingyu's expression was still very calm because he knew that some differences could not be made up with numbers. If the 100 people on the other side were all in the mystic demon realm, Xiao Lingyu might have frowned and might have to use the formless giant demon technique to resist. When the attacks arrived, Luo shouted and put on a fiery red battle armor. Then a fire dragon surged out from the top of his head and circled around the two of them. The fire dragon's power was extraordinary, but it was absolutely difficult to block all the attacks. However, Luo had already done his best. Seeing that the fire dragon had already turned into flames and dissipated under the attacks of the other party's magic treasures and immortal talismans, Xiao Lingyu still didn't move at all. When the attacks were less than 3 meters away from the two of them, a powerful aura suddenly surged out and actually forced all the flowing lights formed by the magic treasures and immortal talismans to retreat. All the immortal talismans exploded, but they were unable to break through the aura. Even the weaker immortal treasures were directly shattered under the vibration of the aura. This was an aura that made Luo feel very oppressed and frightened. He could not help but look at Xiao Lingyu in astonishment. Xiao Lingyu's expression was calm at this time. After blocking all the attacks, he said leisurely, "It's not too late if all of you retreat now." Facing the siege of nearly 100 cultivators at the same stage, he could still say such heroic words. Luo's gratitude and admiration for Xiao Lingyu had already become the reverence he had when facing the sect's elders. The other party did not expect that not only did their attacks not touch the corner of the other party's clothes, but they also could not even make the other party move. The other party only released a wave of aura. It was obvious that the person beside Luo was very strong. However, there were nearly 100 people on his side. Moreover, Luo had come with great difficulty. In a situation where they had the advantage, how could they retreat? This was naturally impossible. "We're not scared," one of the disciples of the Qianling sect shouted and threw out another immortal talisman. The other disciples of the Qianling sect also responded. Xiao Yu smiled bitterly and shook her head. She had already formed a circle of yin-yang fish seal and casually sent it out. However, his primal chaos demonic seal did not explode in the midst of the enemy's crowd. Instead, it automatically activated its power halfway through its flight. Boom! The primal chaos demonic seal suddenly exploded, and an even more powerful shockwave immediately swept out in all directions, directly expanding the encirclement of nearly 100 people by more than 100 times. This was because no one on the other side was able to withstand the shockwave of the aura, and all of them were forcefully pushed away as they violently vomited blood. Luo was already dumbstruck. He had completely forgotten that this was his own business, and that he should be the one to stand out and fight. The people from the Qianling sect were not boorish people. They knew they had kicked an iron plate. After they regained their footing, all of them turned around and fled. None of them dared to stay for a moment longer. The primal chaos demonic seal had only injured many of the people from the Qianling sect, but it did not take anyone's life. This was something Xiao Yu had done on purpose. After all, the Qianling sect was a top sect in the celestial realm. It was said that there were celestial venerables in the sect. Although he had already offended the Sky Spirit sect by helping Luo Zhe, Xiao Yu hadn't started a massacre after all. He felt that the experts of the Sky Spirit sect wouldn't seek revenge on him over such a small matter. Xiao Yu patted Luo Zhe's shoulder and said, "All right, let's continue on our way." Luo Zhe's body trembled before he regained his senses. He praised Xiao Yu. It's hard to believe that Brother Zhao's only a late-stage, overarching heavenly supreme celestial. Xiao Yu merely smiled and did not reply. Luo Zhe knew there were some things he could ask, but there were some things he should not ask about. For this reason, he felt even more grateful to Xiao Yu as he continued to lead the way. Luo Zhe flew at full speed as he asked in a seemingly casual manner, "Brother Xiao, you came to the celestial realm to look for someone, right?" "Yes," Xiao Yu replied with a nod. Luo Zhe asked again, "Brother Xiao, where do you plan to stay after you issue the mission?" "The celestial realm is vast. There's naturally a place for me," Xiao Yu said nonchalantly. "It seems like you haven't decided on a suitable place, Brother Xiao. Why don't you?" Luo Zhe paused for a moment. When he saw Xiao Yu's expression did not change, he continued to say, "Why don't you stay in the fire sect?" Luo Zhe was certain Xiao Yu's cultivation base was at the overarching heavenly supreme celestial realm. Otherwise, he would not have been able to stay in this independent space. It was not hard to imagine how talented Xiao Yu was. Even in the entire celestial realm, it would be difficult to find someone like him. For this reason, Luo Zhe could not help but think of recruiting geniuses for his sect. Xiao Yu shook his head and said, "I don't want to cause trouble for your sect. If others find out that I'm from the Devil Realm, I'm afraid your sect will be accused of colluding with the Devil Realm." Just like when he was in the Devil Realm, Xiao Yu did not want to join any large sect in the Celestial Realm. He did not want to face cultivators who were stronger than him. Although he did not have a backer, as long as he was careful and kept a low profile, not only would he be free, but he would also not encounter too much trouble. However, Xiao Yu had always been like this. Whether it was in the cultivation world or the Devil Realm, he had never been in less trouble. In his opinion, this was his destiny. No matter what he did, he could not change it. After all, if others bullied him, he could only fight back. Xiao Yu was not a person who liked to stir up trouble, but he was definitely not a person who was afraid of trouble. Luo Zhe was also not a person who was afraid of trouble. Therefore, before coming to this independent space, he had repeatedly fought in order to get more places for the Fire Sect. Although he had achieved a reputation of being undefeated by anyone below the Nine Heaven Xian Celestial Realm, he had also killed or seriously injured many people. Because of this, many sects had issued a kill order for him. Of course, this kill order was only effective in this independent space. Along the way, Luo Zhe would often be stopped by groups of cultivators from other sections. In order to save time, Xiao Yu would not hesitate to attack. However, He would only scare the other party away and would not kill them wantonly. With Xiaoling Yu accompanying him, no matter how many cultivators below the nine heavens Xian celestial realm came, they would not be able to harm Luo Zhou at all. The two of them traveled at full speed for more than a month before they arrived at the edge of a boundless sea. After traveling for hundreds of thousands of miles, Luo Zhou finally stopped above a small island. The small island was not big. As soon as the two of them landed, nearly 50 people came up to greet them. Naturally, these 50 people were all late, overarching, heavenly supreme celestials. Most of them were only one step away from becoming nine heavens Xian celestials. An old man with white hair and a white beard said politely, "Junior brother Luo Zhou, you're finally here. This fellow Taoist must be the brother Xiao you mentioned, right?" Luo Zhou's expression was calm, but his tone was complicated as he said, "I'm sorry for making you wait. I could have arrived a few days earlier, but I kept being stopped by cultivators from other sections. If it weren't for Brother Zhao's help, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to see all of you again." Luo Zhou's words were meant to remind his fellow disciples that the person he had brought with him was very powerful. The old man said with a smile, "Thank you for your help, Brother Xiao. With your strength, I'm sure you must be from a great sect, right?" Xiaoling Yu knew the old man was trying to find out more about him. He could understand why the old man was trying to find out more about him. After all, no one wanted to have an unknown person in their group. Luo Zhou did not want to offend Xiaoling Yu and explained, "Brother Xiao has always been a lone cultivator, and he doesn't belong to any sect. You can rest assured that Brother Xiao is trustworthy." The old man did not ask any more questions. However, he and his fellow disciples were still a little skeptical about Xiaoling Yu's words. As the saying went, one should not have the intention to harm others, but one should always be wary of others. Xiaoling Yu could clearly see the suspicion and wariness in everyone's eyes. However, he did not care, nor did he want to explain himself. The old man said, "Junior brother Luo Zhou and brother Xiao must be exhausted from the journey. Let's find a place to recuperate first." All right, Luo Zhou did not object. Xiaoling Yu did not object as well. He tactfully said, "There's a small island not far away. The scenery there is quite good. I'll go there." After saying that, Xiaoling Yu immediately flew away without the slightest intention of lingering. After Xiaoling Yu had left, the people from the fire sect surrounded Luo Zhou again. The old man asked solemnly, "Who's this guy?" Luo Zhou shook his head and said, "It's best if you don't ask about this and don't offend him. He's very powerful, and his background is mysterious." The old man frowned slightly and said, "Cultivators who can enter this place are, at most, peak late-stage, overarching, heavenly supreme celestials. Even if they're strong, how strong can they be? The operation we're about to carry out is very troublesome. We can't bring an outsider with us. What if he..." "Senior brother Zhang, you're overthinking things. If he wants to harm us, none of us can escape. As for the operation, if he helps us, it'll be foolproof." Luo Zhou interrupted and explained. "Foolproof? Junior brother Luo, aren't you trusting him too much? We're not going to face an ordinary, overarching, heavenly supreme celestial. Even if he's as strong as a nine-heaven Xian celestial, it's hard to be foolproof, right? I was once surrounded by nearly 100 people from the Sky Spirit sect, and he only used a single move to injure and scare them away. This strength is not something we can imagine." Luo Zhou glanced at the person who spoke and said indifferently. Although Luo Zhou was telling the truth, none of the overarching heavenly supreme celestials from the fire sect believed him. "Junior brother Luo Zhou, so you like to brag as well. We won't treat him badly. You don't have to exaggerate." Chapter 348. When Luo Zhou saw the strange expressions on his fellow disciples' faces, he felt an urge to slap them and scold them for being as blind as a bat. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Luo Zhou would have suspected it as well. Luo Zhou changed the topic and asked, "What's the situation over there?" "There are a few sea demons at the nine heavens mystic celestial stage and many at the overarching heavenly supreme celestial stage. Even if we charge in, I'm afraid we'll suffer a lot of casualties. The white-haired old man replied gloomily. Luo Zhe asked again, will there be any celestial dukes? I don't think so. If there were, none of us would have made it back alive, the white-haired old man said in a deep voice. Luo Zhe asked again, did anyone from the other sects go there? Apart from the people from the Heavenly Tao sect who might have been there previously, I don't think anyone from the other sect has discovered anything special about that place. The white-haired old man shook his head and continued to say, Junior Brother Han is still guarding there. If anything happens, he'll send us a message. Luo Zhe nodded and said, with Junior Brother Han guarding there, it's naturally reassuring. However, if the people from the Heavenly Tao sect are also interested in that place, they might cause unnecessary trouble for us. The white-haired old man said worriedly, according to Junior Brother Han, the people from the Heavenly Tao sect have also tried to charge in. However, like us, they returned without success. However, they haven't gone far. I think they're waiting for reinforcements. Luo Zhe pondered for a moment before he said, there's no time to lose. Let's take action in 2 days. I'll meditate to recover first. Please inform Junior Brother Han, Senior Brother Zhang. After saying that, Luo Zhe sat down cross-legged on a random spot on the island and closed his eyes to regulate his breathing. 2 days later, Xiaoling Yu was also invited over. She followed the people from the fire sect and continued to travel deeper into the sea. After traveling for half a day, the white-haired old man's expression suddenly changed. He said, Junior Brother Han sent a message saying the Heavenly Tao sect has begun to charge in again. One of the cultivators from the fire sect said nonchalantly, let them kill first. With their strength, even if they manage to charge in, they'll suffer heavy casualties. They might even be wiped out before they can even charge in. The white-haired old man said, it's not that simple. According to Junior Brother Han, the Heavenly Supreme sect has gathered nearly 100 people from the Heavenly Supreme Celestial sect, and they seem to have brought a divine artifact. A divine artifact. Even Luo Zhe was slightly moved at this time, but then he said in disbelief, although the Tiandao sect is a top sect in the immortal world, it won't easily give a divine artifact to a disciple below the 9 heavens Xian immortal realm, right? Although the divine weapon is powerful, we have to be able to show its power. Xiaoling Yu interrupted when she saw everyone's serious expression. Xiaoling Yu still had the right to speak about divine artifacts. In his opinion, cultivators who hadn't reached the mysterious demon realm wouldn't even be able to utilize 1/10,000th of the divine artifact's might. But even so, it was definitely much stronger than a top-grade devil artifact or immortal artifact. We'd better speed up and get there as soon as possible. If the people from the Heavenly Tao sect get there first, our efforts will be in vain. As Luo Zhe said that, he sped up a little. The group of people also secretly increased their strength. They didn't say anything else, and it took them another half a day to enter a misty sea. As soon as they entered the mist, they could clearly hear the roars of the sea monsters in the air. They became even more nervous. After advancing in the fog for the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, a cultivator who looked like he was only 17 or 18 years old flew towards them. He directly flew into the crowd and said, Tiandao sect's people are still fighting fiercely with those sea demons, but it won't be long before they rush inside. We also have to, at this point, the cultivator who looked very young looked sideways at Xiaoling Yu and asked curiously, Huh? Who is this? Don't be surprised, Junior Brother Han. This is Brother Xiao, an expert I invited to help. Luo Zhe introduced. An expert. Junior Brother Han was a little surprised, but he did not ask much. He continued, we have to move quickly, but we have to confirm one thing first. What should we do if the people from the Heavenly Tao sect, and we all go in? What else can we do? Of course we have to compete with them. A cultivator from the fire sect said straightforwardly, the Heavenly Tao sect has a good relationship with our fire sect. If it's not necessary, it's better not to fight with them. The white-haired old man shook his head. Good relationship? That's just on the surface. The Heavenly Tao sect is just borrowing the power of our fire sect to help them suppress the Qianling sect. A cultivator from the fire sect said with some resentment. Of course we have to fight for what we have to fight for, but try not to attack them, Luo just said. Since we have to fight for it, it's inevitable that there will be a fight. Even if we don't attack, they will. After all, they will definitely sacrifice a lot if they rush in. They will definitely not give up the benefits so easily, the white-haired old man said with a wry smile. If they attack us, then we don't need to be polite. Anyway, before we came in, all the sect have said that we will rely on our own abilities in here. No one needs to be too polite to each other, Luo just said decisively. But they have divine weapons, a disciple from the fire sect said worriedly. And they have nearly twice as many people as we do. Another disciple from the fire sect interjected. What? Are you all ready to give up? The white-haired old man asked coldly with a dignified look. We, the fire sect, have never given up before encountering difficulties. Since we have already come here, I think everyone will definitely want to rush in. Luoja knew that there were some things that could not be said anymore, otherwise the morale would definitely be affected. Therefore, after saying this, he took the lead and continued to move forward. Before they came, the elders of the fire sect had told them to let Luoja and the white-haired old man lead everyone. Everything was up to the two of them. Since the elders of the sect trusted them so much, they naturally had to bring back more treasures for the sect. If we really can't do it later, we'd better retreat, the white-haired old man said to Luoja through voice transmission. Senior brother Zhang, don't worry. I'm not a reckless person. Luoja responded to the white-haired old man and then said to Xiao Lingyu through voice transmission. In a while, please invite Brother Xiao. Ha, you don't need to tell me this. I will do my best, Xiao Lingyu said with a generous smile. If there's a conflict with the Tiandao sect, Brother Xiao had better act like before. Just be a deterrent and don't kill, Luo just said again. I will listen to Brother Luo's arrangements. If Brother Luo doesn't say anything, I will be merciful, Xiao Lingyu nodded and replied. Everyone moved forward in the fog for another half an hour before finally landing. They could vaguely see an archipelago. The strange thing was that this group of islands seemed to have been deliberately arranged. They looked like circles, and the number of islands in each circle was very interesting. There were 81 small islands in the outermost circle, then 72, 64. In the center, which was the center of these circles, there was only one island. What was surprising was that these islands were releasing a light that was not very strong at this time. Even under the fog, it was very conspicuous. Obviously, these islands were not ordinary, and it was very likely that they formed a very powerful formation. Xiao Lingyu did not feel the slightest trace of a formation, but even he frowned at this time. Even if these islands did not form any powerful formation, everyone could clearly see that countless sea monsters were coming and going between these islands, and they were emitting a powerful and manic aura. They probably would not allow others to go deep. Look, the people of the Tiandao sect have already broken through to the fourth circle. 2 more circles, and they will reach the core position. Junior Brother Han pointed into the distance and said nervously. Everyone looked in the direction of Junior Brother Han's finger and saw a group of cultivators that were like small dots fighting with many sea monsters. Because the distance was too far and there was fog, no one could see clearly. They could only vaguely see that the battle was very fierce. It's only the 4th circle. The real danger is still behind, the white-haired old man said indifferently. At this moment, a dazzling, colorful light erupted from the group of cultivators of the Tiandao sect. Then, there was a roar accompanied by a powerful aura surging out. In an instant, all the fog around them was dispelled. The sea monsters that were originally surrounding the cultivators of the Tiandao sect were also cleared away in an instant. A strong smell of blood immediately drifted in all directions. Is there really a divine artifact? The cultivators of the fire sect all changed their expressions. The earth-shattering momentum just now made them tremble in fear. Brother Xiao, what do you think? Luo Zhe asked Xiao Lingyu. It's a divine artifact, but its power is very ordinary, Xiaoling Yu said indifferently. If you face a cultivator with a divine artifact, what are your chances of winning? Luozha asked through voice transmission. If it's a cultivator below the 9 heavens, Xian immortal realm, I can deal with him no matter how many divine artifacts he has, Xiaoling Yu said confidently. I believe in Brother Xiao. Luozha nodded heavily, and then said to the people behind him, Everyone, get ready to fight. We can't fall too far behind the people of the Tiandao sect. Under the leadership of Luozha and the white-haired old man, the group began to move. As soon as they landed on the outermost island, countless sea monsters pressed over. The battle immediately began. Flames shot out from the crowd of disciples of the fire sect, and then took the lives of those sea monsters. Chapter 349. While resisting the crazy attacks from countless sea monsters, the people from the fire sect continued to charge towards the center of the archipelago. They had come prepared and cooperated very well, so their speed of advancement was naturally not slow. The sea monsters on the periphery were slightly weaker. The closer they got to the center of the archipelago, the stronger the sea monsters became, and their speed of advancement became slower and slower. The battle on the Tiandao sect side was even more intense, and it was difficult for them to increase their speed. Many times, they even had to fight on the spot for a long time before they could take a few steps forward. As a result, the distance between the cultivators of the fire sect and the large group of Tiandao sect was naturally getting closer and closer. The most important thing was that because the Tiandao sect had set off first, many powerful sea monsters had been killed by them or had been attracted by them. The pressure on the fire sect side was not very great, and Xiaoling Yu basically did not need to make a move. The fierce battle went on for more than half a day, and the large group of cultivators from the Tiandao sect broke through another circle and reached an island in the last circle. As long as they broke through this circle, they would be able to land on the small island in the center of the archipelago. The small island in the center of the archipelago was definitely the common target of the cultivators of the Tiandao sect and the fire sect. At this time, the cultivators of the fire sect had killed their way to the 4th circle, and they were only 1 circle away from the group of people from the Tiandao sect. Everyone, work harder. They're opening a path for us in front. If we still can't catch up to them, it'll be too embarrassing. The white-haired old man encouraged everyone. The cultivators of the fire sect did not consume much energy, so they naturally had a lot of energy left. At this time, when they heard the white-haired old man's encouragement and saw that the people of the Tiandao sect were already very close to their target, they all worked harder and attacked much faster. Xiaoling Yu did not make a move. He just narrowed his eyes and was on guard. At the same time, he carefully sensed all the auras in the nearby space. He was not afraid of the sea monsters here, nor did he take the people of the Tiandao sect seriously. However, he was very worried about the strange environment here. He always felt that these islands were not simple. Perhaps it was because his realm was not high enough that he had not noticed the slightest abnormality. The more it was like this, the more nervous he became. Roar. In front of the large group of cultivators from the Tiandao sect, a huge sea monster suddenly emerged from the water and let out a roar. Then, a few more sea demons roared, and a strong and violent aura spread out from the center of the archipelago. At this time, the cultivators of the fire sect looked a little solemn. Luozha said in a deep voice, "The sea demons of the 9 heavens, Xian immortal stage have moved out. The real battle is about to begin. I hope the people of the Tiandao sect can help us kill a few of them first." It was a very difficult task for the cultivators of the Heavenly Dao sect and the Fire sect to deal with several sea demons at the 9 heavens Xian immortal stage at the same time. Even though they had more people and high-level immortal treasures and talismans, what the cultivators of the Fire sect, including Luozha, did not expect was that the people of the Tiandao sect would be defeated by several sea monsters of the 9 heavens Xian immortal stage after fighting for less than 10 minutes. They had no choice but to retreat. "They're not stupid," Xiaoling Yu said with a faint smile. The cultivators of the Tiandao sect seemed to be defeated, but in fact, they had deliberately retreated. If they had fought with all their strength, even if they were defeated, they would not have been defeated so quickly. Of course, if they had fought with all their strength, they would have suffered heavy losses. At that time, how could they compete with the fire sect? The cultivators of the Tiandao sect did not want to fight with all their might. In the end, their efforts would be in vain, and they would only benefit the cultivators of the fire sect. Therefore, it was wise to retreat for the time being. Soon, nearly 100 people of the Tiandao sect arrived at the location of the cultivators of the fire sect, with several sea monsters of the Nine Heavens Xian immortal stage. Don't panic, fellow cultivators of the Tiandao sect. We can work together to kill these sea monsters. The white-haired old man shouted to the front. However, the cultivators of the Tiandao sect acted as if they did not hear him. They went around and retreated directly behind the cultivators of the fire sect. The sea monsters of the Nine Heavens Xian immortal stage did not follow them. Instead, they pounced on the cultivators of the fire sect. In just a breath, 8 disciples of the fire sect were killed. These bastards are really shameless. The white-haired old man cursed loudly. The cultivators of the fire sect were also very angry. They had completely forgotten that they had also wanted the people of the Tiandao sect to open the way for them. Everyone, don't panic. Since they took the initiative to step aside, we have a chance to take the lead. Stabilize the formation and kill these sea monsters. Luo Zhe was still relatively calm. He shouted and commanded everyone to arrange the formation according to the previous plan while taking the lead to attack. Countless high-grade immortal treasures and immortal talismans of the fire element streaked across the sky, dispersing the fog and exploding around the sea monsters. However, the sea monsters did not have any magic treasures or immortal talismans. Even though their cultivation realm was one level higher, the cultivators of the fire sect outnumbered them and had many means of attack. After killing several disciples of the fire sect, it was difficult for them to advance even half a step. Xiaolingyu did not continue to sit by and watch. Occasionally, she would strike out a chaotic demonic seal. Although she had suppressed her strength, she was always able to hurt those sea monsters. With the help of Xiaolingyu, intentionally or unintentionally, the cultivators of the fire sect arranged the formation and continued to move forward. Even though the sea monsters of the Nine Heavens Xian immortal stage desperately tried to stop them, Xiaolingyu's chaotic demonic seal made them unable to resist and could only retreat. The cultivators of the Tiandao sect followed the example of the disciples of the fire sect and followed closely behind, only fighting with the ordinary sea monsters. Another 2 hours passed, and the people of the fire sect had already approached the island in the center of the archipelago. There were originally 5 sea monsters of the Nine Heavens Xian immortal stage, but now there were only 3 left, and all of them had suffered serious injuries. The cultivators of the Tiandao sect naturally would not let the fire sect get ahead of them. They also began to exert their strength and began to charge forward. They were already side by side with the disciples of the fire sect, instead of continuing to hide behind. In this way, the elite disciples of the 2 sects joined forces, and the 3 sea monsters of the Nine Heavens Xian immortal stage found it even more difficult to resist and had to continue to make way. Seeing that the cultivators of the 2 sects were about to reach the island in the center of the archipelago at the same time, the cultivators of the Tiandao sect poured their cultivation into a magic treasure that looked like a bamboo tube at the same time. After a few moments, the bamboo tube seemed to have absorbed enough energy. Suddenly, its whole body shone with colorful light, and a ball of light shot out from the tube at an extremely fast speed, fiercely bombarding an injured sea monster. Boom! The explosion was earth-shattering, and a mighty shock wave immediately swept in all directions. Not only did it blow up a large area of sea water in front of them in an instant, but it also pushed all the cultivators of the fire sect far away. As for the sea monster, it disappeared without a trace after the explosion. The cultivators of the fire sect were pushed away by the aura. Their faces were flushed, and their chi and blood were surging. Most of them could not help but spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. The cultivators of the Tiandao sect had already put away the bamboo tube and were the first to reach the island. Shameless people, using a divine artifact at this time. The white-haired old man of the fire sect could not help but curse again. In the end, the people of the Tiandao sect were the first to reach the target. Naturally, the cultivators of the fire sect were all very unhappy. Even if you get to the island first, you might not be able to get the greatest benefits. Everyone, come with me. Luoja's face was very ugly, but he still maintained his calm and flew to the island with the disciples of the fire sect. Brother Luo, you'd better be careful. Although those sea monsters are in the sea water around these islands, none of them will come to the island. There must be something wrong with this. After reaching the island, Xiaoling Yu transmitted her voice to Luo Zhe. Everyone had already reached the island, and the sea monsters that had retreated to avoid the aura of the divine artifact surrounded them again. However, they only roared in the sea water around the island, and none of them dared to rush to the island. This place is indeed strange, but if we want to get the treasure, it's worth taking a little risk. Luo Zhe responded, and then led everyone to the center of the island at full speed. The island was not large, and they soon reached the center and stopped at the foot of a mountain. The mountain wasn't very tall, but it was bare. There wasn't any vegetation on the mountain, only huge rocks. At the top of the mountain, there was a building that looked like a house made of stone. One of them was constantly flowing with colorful light, and it looked very mysterious. Whether it was the cultivators of the Tiandao sect or the people of the fire sect, they all rushed to the house at the top of the mountain. Everyone thought that there would be treasures inside. At this time, the people of the Tiandao sect had already flown to the top of the mountain, and the cultivators of the fire sect also rushed to the top of the mountain at full speed. However, just as the cultivators of the fire sect reached the top of the mountain, a circle of colorful light suddenly flashed with a very powerful aura. Not only did it push all the cultivators of the fire sect down from the top of the mountain, but even the people of the Tiandao sect could not continue to stand on the top of the mountain. The colorful light circle and the powerful aura flashed and spread around the foot of the mountain, then disappeared. Peace was restored. The cultivators of the Tiandao sect seemed to have reacted faster, and they immediately reached the top of the mountain after a few flashes. Luo Zhe waited for a while. After seeing that the cultivators of the Tiandao sect had reached the top of the mountain and everything was still calm, he led the cultivators of the fire sect up the mountain again. Haha, there's a supreme-grade immortal weapon in this house. As soon as the cultivators of the fire sect reached the top of the mountain, they saw a disciple of the Tiandao sect running out of a stone house happily. I have a piece of supreme-grade meteorite iron here. Another disciple of the Tiandao sect had obtained a treasure in the stone house. Immediately after, the disciples of the Tiandao sect walked out of those stone houses one after another, and all of them looked very happy as they ran to the next house. What are you waiting for? Do you want to wait for them to take away all the treasures before you move? The white-haired old man reminded them loudly, and then took the lead to fly to a stone house. Except for Xiaoling Yu and Luo Zhe, everyone else rushed to those stone houses after coming back to their senses, and all of them were full of anticipation and excitement. Xiaoling Yu did not move because he was not very interested in those treasures, and also because he was highly vigilant about this place. Chapter 350. There was a cultivator in a dark green robe, standing in front of the room that was flowing with colorful light. In the cultivator's hand was a magic treasure shaped like a bamboo tube. The door of the house was tightly closed, as if the owner did not welcome others to visit. Xiaoling Yu also followed Luo Zhe to the door, less than 10 feet away from the cultivator, holding the bamboo tube. Brother Xiao, what do you think? Luo Zhe did not act rashly, but asked first through voice transmission. I can't penetrate into the house with my mind, and I feel from the aura overflowing from this house that it doesn't seem to be a building, but a magic treasure. Xiaoling Yu replied through voice transmission. Magic treasure? Could it be a divine artifact? Luo just said in surprise. My feeling may not be accurate, Xiaoling Yu replied calmly, but his expression did not change in the slightest. Although he said so, Xiaoling Yu was already completely certain that this house was a divine artifact, and it was very likely to be a space-type divine artifact. To put it bluntly, it was a spiritual abode. Previously, Xiaoling Yu had not sensed any traces of the formation's fluctuations, but before arriving at this spiritual abode, he vaguely sensed some faint fluctuations of the formation. This spiritual abode should be the core of the formation, and the formation should also have the function of protecting this spiritual abode. However, the formation here has already been destroyed, or perhaps there isn't enough energy to support it, and it has lost its function. Xiaoling Yu looked at the spiritual abode in front of him. Although his expression was very calm, he thought of many things. We'll know what it is when we go in and take a look. After Luo Zhe finished his voice transmission, he quickly walked to the door of the house, wrapped his palm with his power, and pushed towards the door. However, just as Luo Zhe's palm touched the door of the spiritual abode, a circle of colorful light suddenly swept past, and with an incomparably powerful aura, it pushed all three of them away. Everyone was pushed to the foot of the mountain again before they could stabilize their bodies. The colorful light and the impact of the aura did not hurt anyone, but the repulsive force contained in it was impossible for anyone to resist. Not only the three people who had been standing at the entrance of the divine abode, but even the cultivators of the heavenly Tao sect and the fire sect who had been searching for treasures in the various stone houses were all pushed to the foot of the mountain. It was clear that the rainbow light and aura came from the divine palace. It was likely that a cultivator from the heavenly Tao sect had touched the divine palace. It was also because of the colorful light and aura at the beginning that the heavenly Tao sect cultivator with the bamboo, tube-shaped magic treasure only stood at the entrance of the divine residence and did not act rashly. Soon, the disciples of the heavenly Tao sect and the fire sect once again rushed to the top of the mountain. Xiaoling Yu and Luo Zhe also returned to the entrance of the divine dwellings. This time, Luo Zhe didn't touch the door of the divine mansion. He waited until the other cultivators had finished plundering all the treasures in the houses on the mountain peak. All the disciples of the two sects had gathered in front of the divine mansion. No one could do anything about it. "How's your harvest?" Luo Zhe asked the white-haired old man via voice transmission. "Not bad. We got more than a dozen supreme-grade treasures and 2 quasi-divine weapons." The white-haired old man replied with a smile. The supreme-grade treasures were nothing more than some supreme-grade immortal weapons, immortal pills, or materials for refining supreme-grade immortal weapons and immortal pills. These were nothing to the experts of the big sections. They were only a little attractive to the disciples of the big sects who were below the 9 heavens Xian immortal realm. The quasi-divine weapons were different. They were not as good as divine weapons, but their power was far beyond supreme-grade immortal weapons. Even the experts of the immortal emperor realm would covet them. The reason why the major powers of the immortal and devil realms sent so many elite disciples here was not for the disciples to obtain great opportunities, nor was it for immortal stones or devil stones. It was for the elite disciples to search for quasi-divine tools or divine tools here. "There may be another divine weapon here," Luo Zhe said to the white-haired old man via voice transmission. "What? A divine weapon?" The white-haired old man couldn't help but exclaim. His words were heard clearly by everyone. The cultivators of the Tiandao sect were also guessing that even if this house was not a divine weapon, there must be a divine weapon inside. When they heard the white-haired old man's exclamation, they were even more certain of their guess, and all of them showed a fanatical look. Luo Zhe glared at the white-haired old man, but he didn't care too much. Even if everyone knew that there was a divine weapon here, they had to have the ability to take it away. The cultivator of the Tiandao sect, holding the bamboo tube magic treasure, waited for a while, then suddenly threw the bamboo tube in his hand into the air. Then he poured his power into the bamboo tube with the other cultivators of the Tiandao sect. The cultivators of the fire sect were already very familiar with this scene, so they immediately retreated a distance. Boom! A colorful ball of light flew out of the bamboo tube and fiercely hit the door of the divine mansion. The divine mansion trembled slightly, and a colorful light shone again, and a powerful aura swept out again. The cultivators of the two sects on the top of the mountain were pushed down the mountain again, and then flew back to the top of the mountain at the same time. In terms of speed, Xiaolingyu had an absolute advantage, but he didn't fly too fast. Instead, he arrived at the door of the divine mansion first with Luo Zhe. The bamboo tube magic treasure was still hovering in the air, but the door of the divine mansion had already been blasted open. The cultivators of the Tiandao sect rushed over and put away the bamboo tube magic treasure. Although the door of the divine mansion had been opened, after everyone arrived, no one dared to rush into the divine mansion at the first moment. They all looked at the door with uncertain expressions, not daring to act rashly. However, there was still a colorful light flowing around the divine mansion, and everyone's consciousness couldn't penetrate it. Looking at it with the naked eye, the situation behind the door of the divine mansion was blurry. After waiting for a while, everyone was surprised to find that the door of the divine mansion was gradually closing. Therefore, the impatient and bold people couldn't wait any longer and immediately rushed into the divine mansion. Luo Zhe hesitated for a moment, then rushed in as well. In a breath's time, only Xiaolingyu was left outside the door of the divine mansion. Even those who were timid didn't want to fall behind when they saw so many people entering. Although the divine artifact is good, it's definitely not something that anyone can take away easily. These people are too impatient. Looking at the closed door of the divine mansion, Xiaolingyu shook his head and smiled bitterly. He felt that this divine mansion must be extremely dangerous, so he didn't go in. He didn't like this kind of unpredictable thing the most. Luo Zhe and the other people of the fire sect were willing to go in, but Xiaolingyu wouldn't rush in to protect their safety. Peace returned to the top of the mountain, but Xiaolingyu didn't leave. He waited quietly at the door of the divine mansion. 3 days later, the originally quiet divine mansion suddenly began to flash with colorful light, and a powerful aura surged out one after another. Xiaolingyu was pushed to the foot of the mountain. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't rush to the top of the mountain against the aura. He could only wait at the foot of the mountain on high alert. After waiting for less than a day, the colorful light flashing from the top of the mountain, as well as the aura that was constantly fluctuating, all disappeared. Xiaolingyu flew up again, but was surprised to find that the divine mansion had disappeared without a trace. At the original location of the divine mansion, there were more than 50 cultivators standing. Among them, there were only 3 cultivators from the fire sect, and the rest were all from the Tiandao sect. These 50 people were all a little embarrassed, while the 3 people from the fire sect were all in tatters and covered in wounds. They were all staring at the people from the Tiandao sect with incomparable anger. The cultivators from the Tiandao sect surrounded the 3 people from the fire sect, and their killing intent was also strong. "What's going on?" Xiaolingyu frowned slightly. He was very surprised and slowly flew over. "Tiandao sect, you've gone too far." The old man, whose white hair was already dyed red with blood, roared angrily. "Haha, it's because you're not strong enough, yet you still insist on fighting with us for the divine artifact. Should we just watch you take the divine artifact and not do anything?" The cultivator holding the bamboo tube replied with a smile. "Just now, the treasure was already taken by you, and we didn't do anything. Why are you still attacking us?" The old man questioned. "In order to protect the divine artifact, you all risked your lives. The treasure was taken by us, and there were only 7 or 8 of you left. Naturally, we didn't dare to do anything. But after all, you killed so many of our people. We have to avenge our fellow disciples, right?" The cultivator holding the bamboo tube explained calmly. "What about now? Now that the divine artifact is in your hands and only 3 of our people are left, Why are you still surrounding us? Luoja asked coldly. The other party had more than 10 times the number of people on their side, and they also had a divine artifact. No matter how powerful Luoja was, he couldn't win against so many wolves. We're surrounding you, of course, because we want your lives. Can't you even understand this? The cultivator holding the bamboo tube replied. You're so ruthless. Don't you care at all about the alliance between our fire sect and your Tiandao sect? The white-haired old man asked hatefully. It's precisely because we care that we want to kill all of you. Otherwise, when you go back and spread rumors, it will definitely affect the alliance between the two sections. The cultivator holding the bamboo tube shook his head and responded. Then he suddenly shouted, "Do it!" After receiving the order, the dozens of Tiandao sect cultivators launched all the attacks they had prepared. Dozens of streams of light shot towards the 3 people from the fire sect. Even though Luoja had the advantage of speed, under such a dense attack, it was difficult for him to use his movement technique. With dozens of cultivators attacking at the same time, the 3 injured cultivators from the fire sect probably wouldn't even be able to withstand this round of attacks. However, just as the Tiandao sect cultivators launched their attacks, Xiaoling Yu had already landed in front of the 3 cultivators from the fire sect. She released her aura and instantly sent the dozens of streams of light flying. The immortal treasure retreated and its brilliance dimmed. However, the immortal talisman flew back and exploded among the Tiandao sect cultivators. The Tiandao sect cultivators never expected that this wave of attack, which seemed to be able to kill all 3 cultivators from the fire sect, would actually cause more than 10 deaths on their side in the end. Who are you? The cultivator holding the bamboo tube stared at Xiaoling Yu and asked. Chapter 351. The expression of the cultivator holding the bamboo tube changed as he asked, You don't seem to be from the fire sect, do you? No. Xiaoling Yu nodded and replied, Since you're not from the fire sect, I advise you not to stick your neck out. Our Tiandao sect is not something you can afford to provoke, the cultivator holding the bamboo tube said coldly. I have no intention of provoking you. I just want to save the lives of these 3 people. Xiaoling Yu shook his head. Sir, you're only one person. You must be below the 9 heavens, Xian immortal realm. I believe that you're acting rashly right now. The cultivator with the bamboo tube said in a threatening tone. Sir, you are not a rational person. Haha, I know very well whether I'm rational or not. Actually, I also want to advise you to take your people and leave quickly. After all, the divine artifact is already in your hands. It's better not to complicate matters. Xiaoling Yu said with a smile. Although he was facing dozens of cultivators from the Tiandao sect, his expression was very relaxed. In fact, Xiaoling Yu knew that the people from the Tiandao sect would definitely not leave easily. I think you're refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I'd like to see how you're going to save the lives of these 3 people. The cultivator holding the bamboo tube seemed to have lost his patience and directly threw the bamboo tube in his hand into the air. Then, the cultivators of the Tiandao sect behind him very tacitly poured their power into the bamboo tube at the same time. After all, the bamboo tube was a divine artifact. Xiaoling Yu did not dare to take it head-on. Just as the bamboo tube was accumulating power, he had already jumped into the air and grabbed the bamboo tube in his hand. The expressions of the cultivators of the Tiandao sect changed drastically. Their power pouring into the divine artifact had been forcibly interrupted, and they all subconsciously attacked Xiaoling Yu. Unfortunately, their attacks still could not penetrate the aura fluctuations released by Xiaoling Yu. After all, a divine artifact was a divine artifact. Although Xiaoling Yu had grabbed it, he could not move it. After the bamboo tube was grabbed, it began to tremble violently, and its entire body shone with colorful light. With a thought, Xiaoling Yu's silver moon-broken blade appeared in his hand. He shouted and slashed at the bamboo tube with the silver moon-broken blade. With a clang, the seemingly fragile bamboo tube actually blocked the silver moon-broken blade's attack. However, At the place where the silver moon-broken blade had struck the bamboo tube, tiny cracks had already appeared. Xiaoling Yu calmed down slightly. Withstanding the attacks of the heavenly Dao sect cultivators, he slashed down again. With a crack, the bamboo tube shattered in Xiaoling Yu's hand. Since he couldn't control it, he could only destroy it. If he let it go, the heavenly Dao sect cultivators would definitely use it to attack him. The cultivators of the heavenly Dao sect were all dumbfounded. They never thought that the other party would be able to destroy a divine artifact. The only thing that could destroy a divine artifact was a divine artifact of a higher grade. Not only was the other party ridiculously powerful, but he also had a divine artifact. No wonder he was so arrogant just now. Go! The leader of the heavenly Dao sect already understood the difference between the two sides. After reminding them, he turned around and flew away. Too late. Since Xiaoling Yu had already attacked and destroyed the other party's divine artifact, he had no intention of letting anyone from the heavenly Dao sect escape. The wings of extreme speed appeared on Xiaoling Yu's back. Then, he turned into a ray of silver light and flashed in all directions. Everywhere he passed, the heavenly Dao sect cultivators exploded into a mist of blood. In just a few breaths of time, only 2 of the dozens of heavenly Dao sect cultivators were left. If Xiaoling Yu used his full strength, his speed was comparable to an early-stage monarch realm cultivator. These cultivators below the 9 heavens Xian immortal realm could only dream of escaping in front of him. In the end, the 2 of them had already escaped far away. Xiaoling Yu chased after the cultivator with the bamboo tube. He felt that this person should be the leader of this group of heavenly Dao sect disciples. So he had to kill this person first. However, after that person fled for a distance, his entire body was wrapped in a dazzling silver light. Then, as if he had teleported, he moved a long distance in a flash. His speed was actually not inferior to an early-stage Demon Lord realm cultivator. Even with such speed, he could not escape from Xiaoling Yu's pursuit. As for the other person, Xiaoling Yu had already seen Luo Zhe and the other 2 chasing after him. After 10 minutes, the silver light on that person's body suddenly disappeared. His speed also abruptly returned to its original level. Naturally, Xiaoling Yu quickly caught up with him. A chaotic demon seal hit him. Like the other heavenly Dao sect cultivators, that person's body exploded into a mist of blood. The mist of blood was then blown away by the wind. A palm-sized Dharma treasure that was shaped like a small house gradually appeared. This small house was the spiritual abode. I knew it was on you. Xiaoling Yu flew over and held the spiritual abode with his hand to observe it carefully. At this time, the spiritual abode was ownerless and very quiet. However, Xiaoling Yu could only see it with his eyes. He could not penetrate it with his consciousness. Since that guy can recognize a master, I can definitely do it too. Then, Xiaoling Yu dripped a drop of blood essence that contained a wisp of his soul into the spiritual abode. As expected, the blood essence was absorbed by the spiritual abode. Xiaoling Yu immediately formed a mental connection with the spiritual abode. However, Xiaoling Yu had not undergone any sacrificial refinement. Like the heavenly Dao sect cultivators, he could not use this spiritual abode to display its power. He could only familiarize himself with it for a while before keeping it in his body. Then, Xiaoling Yu sent a message to Luo Zhe. After receiving a reply, he aimed in a direction and flew at full speed. After about 100 breaths, Xiaoling Yu caught up with Luo Zhe and the other 2. That guy escaped, Luo Zhe said gloomily. Xiaoling Yu frowned, but did not complain. Instead, he said, he shouldn't have escaped too far. Let's look around nearby. In the following period of time, Xiaoling Yu, Luo Zhe, and the other 2 continued to search the sea. The range of their search was constantly expanding. Unfortunately, they could not find the remaining heavenly Dao sect cultivator. I think we should wait near the exit. No matter where he hides, he has to go through the exit to return to the immortal world. After searching for a full year, Luo Zhe suggested to Xiaoling Yu. If they could not find him after a year, it would probably be useless to continue searching. Xiao Lingyu pondered for a moment and nodded. On the way to the exit, Xiao Lingyu and the other three were often intercepted. The other party was targeting Luo Zhe. If Luo Zhe and the other two could deal with it themselves, the three of them would deal with it themselves. If the other party was too many and could not deal with them, Xiao Lingyu would help them deal with it. Luo Zhe and the other two had seen Xiao Lingyu's strength, so even if they knew that the divine abode was definitely with Xiao Lingyu, they did not dare to ask. Besides, Luo Zhe and the other two were too embarrassed to ask. After all, without Xiao Lingyu's help, they would have died long ago. How could they ask about the divine abode? Since they did not ask, Xiao Lingyu naturally would not explain anything. He did not feel guilty about taking the divine abode. The fire sect had suffered heavy losses this time, so Luo Zhe and the other two were naturally not in the mood to take the risk to seek fate. However, Xiao Lingyu had intentionally or unintentionally collected many benefits for them along the way. The fire sect had suffered such a great loss this time. After returning, the elders of the fire sect would definitely hold Luo Zhe and the white-haired old man accountable. Xiao Lingyu felt that Luo Zhe was a good person, so he wanted Luo Zhe to have more confidence when he returned. This confidence naturally came from the gains. After nearly 200 years, Xiao Lingyu and the other three finally reached the exit and stopped in front of a spatial passage that led to the celestial realm. According to the previous agreement, the four of them did not go to the celestial realm. Instead, they waited beside this spatial passage, waiting for the cultivator from the Tiandao sect to come to them. However, this independent space would appear for nearly 10,000 years every time. Generally speaking, everyone would only start their return journey in the last 2,000 years. At present, this independent space had just opened, so Xiao Lingyu had to wait for several thousand years. This made Xiao Lingyu, who was eager to go to the celestial realm, a little hesitant. After waiting for a few months and not seeing a single person, the white-haired old man suddenly said, "If we keep waiting here, when everyone starts their return journey, many people will come to seek revenge on me. Although we are not afraid, it will be very troublesome. Brother Xiao will also offend more forces because of this." Xiao Lingyu was already a little hesitant. After hearing the white-haired old man's words, he only pondered for a moment and said, "No need to wait. Let's go to the celestial realm." The Tiandao sect was heartless first. Even if that guy goes back and says something, the Tiandao sect might not have the nerve to take revenge. Moreover, that person doesn't know Brother Zhao's background. No matter how powerful the Tiandao sect is, it won't be easy to find Brother Xiao in the vast celestial realm, Luo Zhe added. Xiao Lingyu believed that the experts from the Tiandao sect would not know what happened in this independent space in a short period of time. After they found out, not only would he carefully avoid them, but he would also refine the spiritual abode. With the help of the spiritual abode, even if he was unlucky enough to be hunted down by the experts from the Tiandao sect, as long as the other party did not send celestial venerables with divine artifacts, he would be able to protect himself. The spatial passageway leading to the immortal world was also filled with spatial turbulence. However, the spatial energy that was as sharp as knives and swords could not harm them. Xiao Lingyu's wings of extreme speed could absorb the spatial energy in the vicinity. After exiting this passage, Xiao Lingyu could be considered to have truly arrived at the celestial realm. However, before he could see the scenery of the celestial realm, he first saw two experts from the celestial realm. When the two experts from the celestial realm saw the four of them, they were very surprised because they did not expect anyone to come out so early. Fire Sect's Luo Zhe greets the two seniors. Luo Zhe immediately greeted them respectfully, wanting to help Xiao Lingyu distract the two experts from the celestial realm. Xiao Lingyu's expression was normal because he found that the two of them were only at the immortal monarch realm and could not see through his secrets. Chapter 352. So, it's a junior from the fire sect. Why are you out now? Didn't a few dozen people from your fire sect go in? Where are the others? The two immortal monarchs were a little surprised and curious. Their eyes naturally swept over Xiao Yu and the other three. When they saw Xiao Yu, the two immortal monarchs frowned at the same time. There were some accidents inside. Our other fellow disciples all died inside. The four of us were lucky enough to escape. Luozhi said with a sad expression. Life and death are predestined. These independent spaces have been here for countless years. Every time they appear, they will take away many good people from the immortal world. One of the immortal monarchs said with sympathy, Is he also from your fire sect? The other immortal monarch pointed at Xiao Yu and asked. Yes. Luozhi nodded. Your fire sect has quite a few talents. The immortal monarch seemed to be implying something. Senior, you flatter me. Luozhi said politely. Since you're out, go back. Don't let the elders of the sect wait. One of the immortal monarchs waved his hand and said, Then we'll take our leave. Luozhi bowed again, then quickly left with Xiao Yu and the other two. After Xiao Yu and the other three left, one of the immortal monarchs narrowed his eyes and said, I can't see through that kid. The other immortal monarch also nodded and said, I can't see through him either. He probably has a magic treasure to hide his strength. The immortal monarch who spoke first continued. This time, only 4 independent spaces have appeared. All parties feel that these 4 independent spaces must have great opportunities. They have invested a lot in the elite disciples who entered the independent spaces. It is said that the Heavenly Tao sect has even taken out a divine weapon. The other immortal monarch smiled and said, So what if they have a divine weapon? Those who enter are all juniors below the 9 heavens, Xian immortal realm. They can't unleash the power of the divine weapon at all. Even if they encounter a great opportunity, it will be very difficult to grasp it. After successfully passing the test, Xiao Yu felt a little more relaxed. He didn't use any magic treasure to hide his background, but the chaos demonic power itself was very special. Ordinary cultivators were not familiar with the aura of the chaos demonic power, so they naturally couldn't distinguish it. This is the demon subduing continent. Right now, there are many immortal lords and even immortal sovereigns here. Brother Xiao should leave as soon as possible. After flying for a while, Luozhi reminded Xiao Yu. The other 2 cultivators from the fire sect had seen Xiao Yu in action several times. Although Xiao Yu and Luozhi did not say anything, the 2 cultivators from the fire sect could vaguely guess that Xiao Yu was from the devil world. When Xiao Yu fought with others and released her power, it was difficult to completely suppress her demonic nature. Then let's part here. Thank you for leading the way, Brother Luo, Xiao Yu said politely. Hee, we should be the ones thanking him, the white-haired old man said with a smile. Brother Xiao, if you need our fire sect's help in the future, please don't hesitate. You can come to the Fire Source continent to look for us. Luozhi did not forget to remind Xiao Chun. Of course. Xiao Yu nodded. The teleportation array is over there. With Brother Zhao's speed, you should be able to see it within 2 hours, Luozhi said as he pointed to the left. Let's go. Xiao Yu responded again and flew away at top speed. Junior Brother Luo, do you think the divine abode is with him? The white-haired old man asked after Xiao Yu disappeared into the sky. Why? Is Senior Brother Zhang still thinking about the divine abode? Luozhi said in a displeased tone. We sacrificed so many people, but in the end, Senior Brother Zhang, Junior Brother Han, the 3 of us have to remember one thing. We can't be sure who the divine abode will fall into in the end. We will try our best not to say anything about Brother Xiao. Even if we want to say something, we will say as little as possible. No matter what his background is, at least our lives were saved by him. After Luozhi said this, he continued to fly forward. At this time, the surroundings of the demons subduing continent's teleportation array were not very lively. Those who should have come had already come, and those who should have left had already left. If there were no special circumstances, cultivators would not come to a special continent like the demon subduing continent, just like how the cultivators of the demon realm would not go to the immortal execution continent. After waiting for less than a cup of tea's time, Xiao Yu successfully entered the teleportation array. First, he put in a few immortal stones, then casually tapped on the astrolabe, and the teleportation array exploded with a rumbling sound. After a flash of white light, Xiao Yu's body suddenly disappeared. The space of the immortal world and the space of the devil world were almost the same. Whether it was the space pressure or the space fluctuation rules, they should be about the same. The only difference was that the space of the immortal world was filled with immortal spiritual energy, while the space of the devil world was filled with devil spiritual energy. There were no immortal stone veins in the devil world and no devil stone veins in the immortal world. The cultivators of the immortal realm were not fond of fighting, so the closer they were to the spatial barrier between the immortal realm and the demon realm, the fewer cultivators there were on the nearby immortal realm. Every time the immortal realm and the demon realm fought, the immortal realm would need to mobilize everyone in order to have a large number of experts to participate in the battle. However, the demon realm did not need any mobilization at all, and countless experts would rush over to fight. Right now, an independent space had already appeared in the spatial barrier between the two realms, and a spatial crack that connected the two realms was about to appear within 1,000,000 years. The immortal realm was still as calm as ever. After teleporting a few times in a row, Xiao Yu did not see any signs of nervousness on the cultivators of the immortal realm, nor did he see a large army of immortal realm experts. He continued to teleport until he was far away from the demon-subduing continent and the spatial barrier between the two realms. Only then did Xiao Yu stop on a continent called Zoan. The Zoan continent was extremely large. Although the entire continent was almost a desert filled with yellow sand, it was still one of the few famous continents in the west of the immortal realm. The reason why it was famous was not because it was rich in resources, nor was it because of any powerful characters that had appeared here, but because there was a spectacle here. Looking down from the sky, one could often see countless round stones rolling rapidly in the wilderness. It was a spectacular sight. Xiao Yu stopped not because he wanted to see anything strange, but because there was a branch of the Immortal Realm Mercenary Organization in Zoan City, and it was a relatively high-grade branch. Although the ordinary mercenary branch on the Immortal Realm continent could accept missions, they could not accept Xiao Yu's mission. Xiao Yu wanted to find someone, but he could not confirm the approximate location of the person he was looking for. He needed the mercenary to search within the largest area, and this kind of mission could only be issued by a high-grade branch. Perhaps there were too many cultivators who came to sightsee, so Zoan City was very lively and even a little crowded. Xiao Yu's pace could not be fast. However, after all, he had just arrived in the Immortal Realm not long ago and was not familiar with the Immortal Realm, so he was not too anxious about everything. While passing by pedestrians, he observed the shops and buildings on both sides of the street. The buildings in the big cities in the Devil Realm were very simple. Almost all of them were piled up with stones. However, the cultivators in the Immortal Realm preferred to enjoy themselves and had higher standards, so the buildings in the big cities in the Immortal Realm were more gorgeous and novel. And, at the same time, they did not lose their grandeur. There were magic treasure shops shining with multicolored light and full of noble aura, horizontal plaques made of glazed crystal stones, and tall buildings built with high-grade wood that emitted a fragrance. Immortals considered a lot of things when they did things, while most of the cultivators of the Devil Path were very straightforward and direct. There were two distinct cultivation systems and two completely different attitudes toward life and cultivation. Everyone was walking on the same road, so it was inevitable that there would be friction. Xiao Yu had just walked 2 streets when he bumped into someone because he had been looking at both sides of the street. After bumping into someone, Xiao Yu's expression immediately sank, and he took 2 steps back as if it was a conditioned reflex. However, the person who was bumped into just smiled and said, "It's okay," and then left. Xiao Yu let out a long sigh, secretly saying that he was too nervous. However, if this matter happened in the Devil Realm, the person who was bumped into would definitely not let it go. At the very least, he would curse at him. If it weren't for the prohibition of fighting in the big cities of the Devil Realm, there might be a bloody battle because of this. The mercenary army was indeed a big force in the Immortal Realm. Just like the bounty hunter organization in the Devil Realm, their branches were built in the center of each big city. Moreover, the buildings were tall and gave people a very obvious sense of oppression. The first floor of the mercenary army branch in the Zoan continent was very spacious. The walls on both sides were also covered with a huge screen, and missions gradually appeared. Most of the cultivators were staring at those missions. Unlike the bounty hunter organization, non-members of the mercenary army could also accept the missions issued by the mercenary army. After completing the missions, the reward was the same as the mercenary army's reward. Moreover, the mercenary army's organization was not very strong. Ordinary cultivators could also form a mercenary army by themselves. According to the overall strength and the number and difficulty of completing missions, the mercenary army's level could be continuously upgraded. The members of the mercenary army were ranked according to their level, and each individual mercenary group also had a high and low level. Xiao Lingyu was not very interested in this, and he had learned a lot from Luo before. He just glanced around slightly and then looked at the counter. Just as he was about to line up, a cultivator suddenly stopped him and said to him, "Fellow Taoist, are you interested in joining our Sky Dome mercenary army?" "Our Sky Dome? Sorry, I don't have that intention." Xiao Lingyu didn't wait for the other party to finish speaking and directly bypassed him. Just as he bypassed that cultivator, he was stopped by another cultivator who also asked him if he wanted to join the mercenary army. Xiao Lingyu tried his best to politely reject the 8 cultivators' invitation before walking to the counter and joining the line. After waiting for an hour, Xiao Lingyu came to the counter. A delicate and pretty fairy asked in a sweet voice, "Fellow Taoist, what mission are you here to accept?" "Haha, I'm not here to accept a mission. I'm here to issue a mission," Xiao Lingyu said with a smile. "Fellow Taoist, what mission do you want to issue?" the fairy asked. "I want to find a person in the entire Immortal Realm. This person is a female cultivator who should have just ascended to the Immortal Realm not long ago," Xiao Lingyu answered. "This mission..." Chapter 353. Xiao Lingyu went to the second floor with the token given to him by the fairy and entered a room. The room wasn't big, and the decorations were very simple. There was only a middle-aged cultivator sitting behind a wooden table. At this moment, the middle-aged cultivator looked at Xiao Lingyu and then pointed to a wooden chair in front of the table. He smiled and said, "Please sit." Xiao Lingyu sat down calmly, and then repeated the mission he wanted to post. This kind of mission not only involves a lot of people, but it also takes a long time. Generally speaking, we don't accept this kind of mission because it takes a lot of effort just to help you post this mission to the various continents. The middle-aged cultivator frowned and continued. "However, the person you're looking for is just a cultivator who has just ascended. It's not very difficult to find him. As long as you can take out enough immortal stones, this mission can still be posted." "How many immortal stones do I need?" Xiao Lingyu asked without changing his expression. 5 million immortal crystals." The middle-aged cultivator pondered for a moment, as if he had quickly calculated and said. Xiao Lingyu's sword-like eyebrows squeezed together when he heard this. If it was 5 million demonic crystals, he could take it out now, but he really couldn't take out 5 million immortal crystals. Xiao Lingyu originally didn't have any immortal stones on him. But in that independent space, he killed dozens of Heavenly Tao sect disciples and collected a lot of immortal stones from their storage magic treasures. However, the total number of immortal stones was still far from 5 million immortal crystals, and a part of it was even returned to Luo Zhe. This is already the lowest price. If you don't have that many immortal crystals on you now, you can wait until you have enough before posting the mission. In any case, you won't be able to complete this mission in a short time. The middle-aged cultivator saw Xiao Lingyu's difficult expression and knew that he didn't have enough immortal stones. So he said this. "Sorry to disturb you." Xiao Lingyu stood up apologetically and left the mercenary building with a gloomy expression. I didn't expect that when I first ascended to the demon world, I was in a hurry to earn immortal stones to buy materials. Now that I've just arrived in the immortal world, I have to earn immortal stones first. At the entrance of the mercenary division, Xiaoling Yu couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Xiaoling Yu had a few million demonic crystals, but he needed demonic crystals for his cultivation, and demonic crystals were worthless in the immortal realm. He couldn't exchange them for immortal crystals, so he had to think of another way. There were many good things in his storage Dharma treasure, but they were either useful to him or useless to immortals. Even if he sold them, he wouldn't be able to get many immortal stones. Whether it was in the cultivation world or the demonic world, Xiaoling Yu's wealth had grown rapidly. He believed that it would be the same in the immortal world. Amongst all the methods to earn immortal stones, robbing others was the fastest, or taking out high-quality goods to auction. After pondering for a while, Xiaoling Yu suddenly turned around and entered the mercenary building. She glanced at the screens on both sides of the wall. If he wanted to rob, he could only rob the powerful cultivators because they would have a large amount of immortal crystals. Xiaoling Yu, who had just arrived in the immortal realm, didn't want to incur the wrath of the immortal realm's experts. As for high-quality goods, Xiaoling Yu felt that it was better to keep them for his own use. After thinking about it, Xiaoling Yu decided to earn immortal crystals by doing missions. 5 million immortal crystals wasn't a small amount. Ordinary missions didn't have high rewards, but missions with high rewards were naturally more difficult and dangerous. After looking for a long time, he once again went to the counter and waited in line. Another hour passed, and Xiaoling Yu arrived in front of the counter. Without waiting for the pretty girl to ask, he spoke first. "I'm here to accept a mission. It's the mission to collect 10 sand crystals." Although the pretty girl recognized Xiaoling Yu, she didn't ask much. Instead, she said, "The mission's deposit is 5,000 immortal crystals." Although the missions issued by the mercenary group were open to anyone, they had to pay a deposit. This deposit was actually a handling fee. Regardless of whether you completed the mission or not, this deposit would not be refunded. However, if you completed the mission, the mercenary group would give you the full reward and no other fees would be charged. It was said that in the past, there was no deposit. When a cultivator completed the mission and came to receive the reward, the mercenary group would deduct the handling fee from the reward. However, later on, many cultivators directly found the person who issued the mission after completing the mission and received the reward in private. The person who issued the mission later came to the mercenary group branch to cancel the mission. This saved the handling fee for the mercenary group. Later on, the mercenary group set the rule that one had to pay a deposit before accepting a mission. Originally, the cultivator who accepted the mission couldn't get in touch with the cultivator who issued the mission. However, some missions required the cultivator who issued the mission to contact the person who issued the mission. The mercenary group couldn't hide the information of the cultivator who issued the mission to ensure that every cultivator who completed the mission would pay the relevant fees. After paying 5,000 immortal crystals, Xiaoling Yu received a jade token and left the mercenary group's building. First, Xiaoling Yu purchased a jade slip with a map of the Zowaru continent engraved on it from a shop in the city. Then, he left Zowaru City. Xiaoling Yu had already read the contents of the jade slip and knew where he should go. After identifying the direction of the city gate, he jumped up and flew toward the northeast of Zowaru City. After leaving Zowaru City, Xiaoling Yu gradually increased his speed. After flying at full speed for 3 days, he stopped at the edge of a desert with countless sand dunes. This desert was very famous on the Zowaru continent. It was called the Sand Eagle Dunes because there were many sand eagles in it. All the sand eagles whose cultivation reached the mystic demon realm had sand crystals in their heads. Sand crystals were a kind of high-quality material that contained soul power. Xiaoling Yu came here to hunt sand eagles. Once he obtained 10 sand crystals, he would be considered to have completed the mission. Then, he could go to the mercenary group's branch to receive a reward of 200,000 immortal crystals. However, the sand eagles were bird-type demonic beasts. Their speed was extremely fast, and far surpass human cultivators of the same stage. The speed of an early-stage mystic demon realm sand eagle was comparable to that of a late-stage mystic demon realm human cultivator. Generally speaking, it was very difficult for cultivators whose cultivation had not reached the immortal monarch realm to hunt sand eagles of the mystic demon realm. They could not catch up to them at all. How could they hunt sand eagles? Moreover, the sand eagles most likely did not move alone. Most of the time, they were in groups. If one's cultivation had not reached the immortal monarch realm and arrived at the sand eagle dunes, they would probably become the sand eagle's food before they could even kill a single sand eagle. If they encountered a group of sand eagles, even an immortal monarch realm expert could only choose to retreat. It was also because hunting sand eagles was more difficult and dangerous. Moreover, sand crystals were high-grade soul materials that the reward for this mission was very high. After stopping outside the sand eagle dunes for a while, Xiaoling Yu waited for her condition to be at its peak before flying into the depths of the sand eagle dunes. The sand eagle dunes covered a vast area. There were countless sand dunes that were not very tall. Looking down from midair, those sand dunes looked like layers upon layers of waves. Countless sand eagles whose cultivation had not reached the mystic demon realm were flapping their wings and flying between the sand dunes. They were either chasing and playing around, not realizing that they were being hunted. Sand eagles with weak cultivation did not have sand crystals in their heads. Therefore, no one would hunt them. The experts of the Weiwan continent even ordered the restriction cultivators to kill the weak sand eagles. Ordinary sand eagles had earthy yellow feathers. Their appearance was not much different from ordinary large eagles. They had sharp claws, iron hook-like beaks, and very sharp eyes. If they were not moving, it would be very difficult for cultivators to discover their existence just by looking at them with their naked eyes, without carefully scanning with their immortal senses. The higher the cultivation of the sand eagle, the better it would be to hide among the sand dunes. In this desert, there was a type of sand mouse demon that was the prey of the sand eagles. Sand mouse demons, like other demonic beasts of the mouse clan, had an astonishing reproduction rate. Moreover, most of them hid in underground nests and only came out at night. Like the sand mouse demons, the sand eagles also lazily crouched among the sand dunes during the day to sleep or play around. At night, they would flap their wings and hover in the air. When they discovered a sand mouse demon, they would shoot down like a sharp arrow. Mystical demon realm desert eagles were also active at night and only hunted gerbil demons with similar cultivation bases. Although the desert eagles had a natural advantage, they still had to go through some trouble to deal with gerbil demons with similar cultivation bases. Experienced falconers would set out at night. Usually, they would hunt the gerbil demon first, and then use the gerbil demon as bait to lure the desert eagles. This experience was not a secret. There was a relevant introduction in the map Jade slip. After Xiaoling Yu entered the depths of the Sand Eagle Hill, he concealed his aura and hid in a cave, quietly waiting for the arrival of night. 8 hours later, the sky was completely dark. The rustling sounds of the sand mouse demons that left the cave and came to the surface were not very obvious in the whistling wind of the Sand Eagle Hill. As for the sand eagles, who were quietly gliding and hovering in the air and staring at the ground with sharp eyes, they hardly made the slightest sound. The gerbil demons had very good hearing. They could clearly distinguish all kinds of movements when the wind was raging. Whenever a desert eagle pounced on them, they could sense the danger through the sound of friction between the desert eagle and the air. This was an important method for the gerbil demons to avoid being killed by the desert eagle. Xiaoling Yu's hearing was not as good as the sand mice's, and his eyesight was not as good as the sand eagle's. However, he spread out his mind to cover a large area around him. Whether it was the sand eagles in the air or the sand mice on the ground, he could see them clearly. Xiaoling Yu naturally did not care about ordinary sand mice and sand eagles. Even if a sand mouse passed by him or a sand eagle flew over his head, he did not move at all. After waiting for an entire night, not a single mystic demon realm sand mouse or sand eagle entered the range of his mind. Chapter 354. Night once again shrouded the entire Rouen continent, but the darkness couldn't make the continent quiet. Sand eagles constantly swooped down from the sky from all over the Sand Eagle Hill. They either missed or caught a gerbil and flew up again. After waiting for nearly 10 days, a middle-stage mystic demon realm gerbil finally entered the range of Xiao Yu's consciousness. Xiao Yu was not in a hurry to take action. Through these days of observation, he found that these gerbils were either too timid or too cautious. As long as they heard the slightest strange movement or felt the presence of danger, they would dive into the sand. Xiao Yu did not know. The speed of the gerbils in the sand was much faster than on flat ground. If a middle-stage or late-stage mystic demon realm gerbil were to move at full speed in the sand, Xiao Yu would have a hard time capturing them. This middle-stage mystic demon realm gerbil wasn't very big and was about the same size as an ordinary wild wolf. However, it had a pair of fist-sized yellow eyes and 2 furry ears. It crawled on the ground and slowly advanced. From time to time, it would stop and sneak a few glances at its surroundings before continuing to crawl. Suddenly, this gerbil stopped about 300 meters away from Xiao Yu. Moreover, its eyes were fixed on Xiao Yu, as if it had discovered something. Through its perception, it sensed a weak but very special aura in front of it. It had never sensed this aura before and was unable to distinguish it. What exactly was in front of it? Could it be some kind of treasure? This gerbil hesitated for a while before slowly crawling towards Xiao Yu. Moreover, it appeared to be on full alert. It reckoned that as long as something slightly wrong happened, it would immediately escape into the sand. When that gerbil was less than 200 meters away from Xiao Yu, it suddenly stopped again and acted as if it was about to drill into the sand. Unfortunately, this distance was really too short. Before its entire body had completely sunk into the sand, it felt that one of its hind legs had already been grabbed. Moreover, a special and powerful energy had already entered its body, imprisoning its entire body. Xiao Yu gently pulled the gerbil out. Then, she used a soul attack to knock it out. Then, Xiao Yu chose another place to hide. After restraining her aura, she threw the unconscious gerbil 200 feet away. The unconscious gerbil lay motionless on ground. Xiao Yu had already released the shackles on it, and its unique scent spread out in all directions. Not long after, some desert eagles came over. However, they were all desert eagles that had not reached the mystic demon realm, so Xiao Yu could only scare them away. On this night, no mystic demon stage, equivalent to a 9 heavens mystic immortal, Sha Ying approached Xiao Yu, so he still did not have any substantial gains. However, Xiao Yu discovered an advantage of hunting gerbils, and that was that the gerbils were not familiar with his energy aura, and it would arouse their curiosity. If he released a little bit of his chaotic mana aura, with that in mind, he did so on another night. Gerbil demons actually had another characteristic, and that was that their sense of smell was very sharp. At least, it was much sharper than those desert eagles' sense of smell. Therefore, when Xiao Yu slightly released the aura of chaos magic power, the gerbil demons could sense it, but the desert eagles flying in the air could not. If he wanted those desert eagles to sense it, Xiao Yu had to release a very strong aura fluctuation. However, this would scare those desert eagles away. More and more gerbils rushed over after smelling the chaotic mana aura. As long as their cultivation was not at the mystic demon stage, they would be scared away by Xiao Yu. After a night, there were still no mystic demon stage desert eagles flying over, but Xiao Yu captured another 5 mystic demon stage gerbils alive. Just like that, Xiao Yu wantonly captured the mystic demon stage gerbils while patiently waiting for the mystic demon stage desert eagles to appear. According to the experience of those falconers, as long as there were enough gerbils as bait, hunting the desert eagles would definitely not be a problem. Sure enough, after waiting for nearly 2 months, a late-stage mystic demon stage desert eagle finally swooped down from the sky. Almost in the blink of an eye, that desert eagle reached the ground. Just as its sharp claws were about to grab the unconscious gerbils, Xiaoling Yu transformed into a silver light and attacked from several hundred feet away. Unfortunately, Xiaoling Yu was not an experienced falconer. Just as he flew over, that desert eagle had already flapped its wings and suddenly rose several hundred feet before disappearing into the dark night sky. The failure of this hunt did not affect Xiaoling Yu's confidence, and it was impossible for him to disappoint Xiaoling Yu. He only changed to another location and continued to wait patiently. After failing a few more times, Xiaoling Yu finally realized the problem. Those mystic demon-stage desert eagles should be very familiar with this space. It was really too difficult for him to catch them. However, there was absolutely no need for him to catch them. He only needed to kill or injure them so that they could not fly away or fly at full speed. Thus, when another desert eagle descended from the sky, Xiaoling Yu directly used the silver moon broken saber to slash out a primal chaos saber ray. The speed of the primal chaos saber ray was naturally much faster than Xiaoling Yu's sudden rush, so it was able to hit that desert eagle without any mishaps. That desert eagle's wings were as hard as metal and covered more than half of its body. However, when it fell at extreme speed, its wings were unable to protect its neck and head, and its neck was the target of Xiaoling Yu's attack. Even though the desert eagle's skin and flesh were very tough, it was impossible for it to block the primal chaos saber ray's attack. When the primal chaos saber ray flashed past, its head was separated from its body. At this moment, Xiaoling Yu pounced forward, took the desert eagle's head, and quickly sealed it. As for the desert eagle's headless body, Xiaoling Yu threw it into the spirit beast pouch for the strange young beast that also possessed primal chaos magic to devour. After that, Xiaoling Yu used the silver moon broken saber to cut open the desert eagle's head and took out a palm-sized lump of crystal. The earthen yellow crystal no longer contained any other types of energy. The only thing it contained was a very pure soul power. Cultivators could directly absorb it to easily refine the soul power within it. That was why the sand crystal was so precious. It's such a waste to give such a good treasure to others. Xiaoling Yu rubbed the sand crystal and thought somewhat unwillingly. Unfortunately, he was currently lacking immortal crystals to issue missions. Xiaoling Yu thought about it again and finally put away the sand crystal. Half a year later, Xiaoling Yu collected 10 sand crystals as he wished and returned to the Mercenary Division's building in Zhouar City. After handing the 10 sand crystals to the counter and withdrawing 200,000 immortal crystals, Xiaoling Yu felt much more comfortable. If it were not for the fact that he had so many immortal crystals, he would absolutely not be willing to give away a treasure that was very useful to him to others. It would take about a year to collect 10 sand crystals and earn 200,000 immortal crystals, and 5 million immortal crystals would take more than 20 years. Xiaoling Yu calculated as he walked to the center of the first floor of the Mercenary Division's building and looked for a suitable mission on the light screen on the wall. There were many missions to collect sand crystals, but most of them were to collect 1 or 2 sand crystals. Xiaoling Yu wanted to accept missions that required more than 10 sand crystals. After all, a round trip would take some time. When he arrived at the counter again, Xiaoling Yu accepted another mission to collect 15 sand crystals, paid the deposit of 7,500 immortal crystals, and left. After staying in the Sand Eagle Hill for another 1.5 years, Xiaoling Yu once again returned to the first floor of the Mercenary Division in Rowan City. What Xiaoling Yu did not expect was that when he arrived at the counter, the gentle and pretty fairy with a smile on her face told him that someone had completed the mission before him, and the reward had already been claimed by that person. Xiaoling Yu already knew that anyone could accept the missions issued by the Mercenary Division. Moreover, after you accepted the mission, others could also accept it. Whoever completed the mission first would be able to get the reward. Of course, the cultivator who completed the mission later would be able to claim back the deposit that he had paid. Since you have 15 sand crystals, then you can accept the same mission. After accepting the mission, you will have completed the mission and you can directly take the reward. This will not affect you much. After all, there are too many missions to collect sand crystals here. After returning the 7,500 immortal crystals, the fairy smiled and comforted him. Your idea is not bad. Xiaoling Yu did as he was told, and sure enough, he received a reward of 300,000 immortal crystals. Why do I still need to accept missions? I can just go and get 200 or 300 sand crystals, and then continue to accept missions and continue to receive rewards. Xiaoling Yu seemed to have been inspired, and he happily headed towards the Sand Eagle Hill. This time, he would not be back anytime soon. Previously, Xiaoling Yu had only thought of one thing, which was that he could accept many missions to collect sand crystals at once. And then after collecting all the sand crystals, he would return to the missions one by one to receive the reward. However, at that time, he had considered that this would take too long, and that the missions he accepted would be completed by others first. He had neglected the fact that there would be people who wanted the sand crystals he collected. After arriving at the Sand Eagle Hill with familiarity, Xiaoling Yu was stopped by a group of cultivators. He originally thought that he had encountered bandits, but unexpectedly, they did not attack him. Instead, they invited him to join their mercenary division and said that they would enter the Sand Eagle Hill together to collect sand crystals. There were a total of 7 cultivators in this group, and the highest cultivation base was only at the peak of the late stage, 9 Heavens, Xian, Immortal Realm. Most of them were only at the mid-stage, 9 Heavens, Xian, Immortal Realm. Everyone knew that if they wanted to gain something from the Sand Eagle Hill, they had to be at least at the early stage of the Immortal Monarch Realm. However, there were also many cultivators below the early stage of the Immortal Monarch Realm who formed groups to hunt the Sand Eagles. But it was extremely dangerous because once they encountered a large group of strong Sand Eagles, it was very likely that their entire group would be wiped out. Therefore, they would usually recruit a lot of people, and cultivators at the early stage of the Immortal Monarch Realm were usually unwilling to join such a group. In the next few days, the Sand Eagle Hill will be more dangerous than other times. Fellow Taoist, it's better for you to travel with us. A cultivator advised. I'm used to being alone. Sorry. Chapter 355. From Xiaoling Yu's point of view, the group of cultivators was just trying to scare him when they said that Sand Eagle Hill would be very dangerous in the near future. Although he didn't know much about Sand Eagle Hill, he had stayed here for a period of time and didn't see any signs of danger. Tens of thousands of kilometers into Sand Eagle Hill, Xiaoling Yu stopped beside an ordinary sand dune. He then hid in the sand and quietly waited for night to come. When night fell, darkness shrouded the earth. The whistling wind seemed to be stronger than during the day. Xiaoling Yu threw a mystic demon stage, gerbil, 20 meters away and released some of his chaos magic power. The gerbil had already fainted and was lying motionless on the sand, emitting an aura that was very tempting to the sand eagles. When ordinary sand eagles flew down, Xiaoling Yu would increase the fluctuations of his chaos magic power to scare them away. When sand eagles of mystic demon stage flew down, he would use his silver moon broken saber to shoot out chaotic blade rays to attack their necks. In this way, Xiaoling Yu was like an experienced eagle hunter, constantly reaping the lives of the sand eagles of mystic demon stage. The number of sand crystals in his storage magic treasure gradually increased. Although carrying out this task was dull and tedious, Xiaoling Yu could only endure it in order to find Anya as soon as possible. The chaos magic power he emitted could indeed attract many gerbil demons. Moreover, the gerbil demons that could smell or sense the fluctuations of chaos magic power were mostly not weak. As long as they dared to come within 20 meters of Xiaoling Yu, it would be extremely difficult for them to escape. Generally, one gerbil was enough to be used as bait. The rest of the gerbil demons became the exotic cub's delicacies like the headless sand eagles. During the day, when he was idle and had nothing to do, Xiaoling Yu would also release the exotic cub. Because the immortal world also had chaos magic power, the exotic cub could also absorb the chaos magic power in the immortal world to cultivate. However, the exotic cub's cultivation speed was too slow by absorbing the thin chaos magic power in the immortal world. Xiaoling Yu would also inject his energy into the cub's body every once in a while to help it quickly improve its cultivation. In addition, the exotic cub could also increase its cultivation by digesting the energy of the gerbil demons or sand eagles. Currently, the exotic cub would often spit out some beads that contained pure chaos magic power. Moreover, its cultivation had already reached the peak of the late mystic demon stage. The reason Xiaoling Yu often released the exotic cub was that no matter how many gerbil demons or sand eagles it ate, the cub's cultivation would not improve. He felt that the exotic cub had reached a bottleneck. Of course, the exotic cub's cultivation. The exotic cub was also very obedient. Every time it came out, it wouldn't run too far away, and it would take the initiative to come back soon. Although this fellow's cultivation is no longer improving, his realm is becoming more and more stable. Does it need this kind of sand crystal to improve its soul realm before it can break through? Although this kind of sand crystal contains rich and pure soul energy, it would probably require a lot of sand crystals to improve the soul realm from the late mystic demon stage to the early demon monarch stage. After all, the gap between the two stages is too big. There are two main reasons why it could break through so many times in the past. First, its cultivation was too weak, so it was relatively easy for it to make progress. Second, with my help, it used to devour the energy of magical beasts that were much stronger than it. If it wants to break through to the early immortal monarch stage, it would probably need to devour the energy of a few immortal monarch stage demonic beasts. Xiaoling Yu thought seriously as he stroked the exotic cub that was lying on his arm. If this exotic cub reached the demon monarch stage, it would really be a great help to him. It would make it much easier for him to fight his enemies in the future. Just as he thought of this, Xiaoling Yu's expression suddenly changed. He first put the exotic cub into the spirit beast pouch, then completely retracted his aura and dove a few meters into the sand. The reason why he dodged without hesitation was that Xiaoling Yu suddenly felt a strong aura surging toward him. In his mind, there were countless desert eagles gathering in the sky not far away. They were like a huge wave that was rapidly advancing toward him. It was like an endless yellow cloud. The aura released by those desert eagles was overwhelming. Even though Xiaoling Yu was not weak, he did not dare to be targeted by them. Moreover, he could vaguely sense that there should be many immortal monarch stage existences among those desert eagles. He hid underground and waited for nearly an hour before the countless desert eagles flew over Xiaoling Yu's head. Xiaoling Yu flew out from the ground and stood in midair. He spread out his mind completely, but he did not see a single desert eagle nearby. Originally, there were many desert eagles with weak cultivation in the surroundings, but now they had obviously joined the group of desert eagles just now. He did not know where they were going. They are moving on such a large scale. If they are not migrating, then they must have encountered danger. Desert Eagle Hill is the only place where they gather and live on the Zoawaro continent. They must not be migrating. Could they have encountered danger? Xiaoling Yu's expression darkened. He could not help but think of the warning of the few cultivators he met outside Desert Eagle Hill when he first arrived. In the next few days, Desert Eagle Hill will be more dangerous than other times. Could it be true? Regardless of whether it was true or not, Xiaoling Yu felt that he had to leave Desert Eagle Hill as soon as possible. No matter how important the mission was, it was not as important as his own life. After making up his mind, he flew toward Zoaru City at full speed. However, not long after he took off, and before he could increase his speed to the maximum, Xiaoling Yu already felt a gust of wind coming from behind him at an extremely fast speed. In his mind, at this time, a gust of wind was blowing behind him. Yellow sand was rolling, covering the sky and the sun. Countless huge round stones were rolling in the gust of wind and flying toward him. The scene looked very frightening. Countless huge round stones rolling forward was a characteristic sight of the Zoawaro continent. They could be seen almost everywhere on this continent. But this kind of situation where a gust of wind and yellow sand filled the sky was really rare. Oh no, Xiao Yu only let out a low cry. The yellow sand behind him had already drowned him, and he did not even have the chance to fall into the ground. The gust of wind was like a knife, blowing Xiao Yu's defensive light shield until it trembled. The sand and the gust of wind kept hitting it. Over time, his defensive light shield was broken. Before he could cast his defensive light shield again, countless sand had already hit his body. Even though the quality of his body was already very high, Xiao Yu could clearly feel the pain coming from the places where he was hit by the sand. He cast his defensive light shield again, but in the next moment, he was hit by another round stone. Although the defensive light shield was not broken, his body involuntarily rolled and danced with the round stones. The gust of wind was too strong. Even Xiao Yu found it difficult to stabilize his body. He could only move with the gust of wind because this could reduce the probability of being hit by the round stones. After all, he and the round stones were moving in the same direction, and their speed was about the same. Even if he was hit, there would not be any danger. However, in this way, if the gust of wind did not stop, Xiao Yu would be trapped in it forever. And if he hoped for the gust of wind to stop, who knew how many years it would take? After moving with the wind for a full month, Xiao Yu still did not see any signs of the gust of wind stopping. Just as he was thinking of other solutions, Xiao Yu suddenly realized that this terrifying gust of wind had actually caught up with a group of desert eagles. There were also many desert eagles, so many that it was impossible to count. However, after being caught by the gust of wind, their bodies were constantly pulled into the gust of wind, and then countless sand particles pierced through their bodies. In an instant, the bodies of the desert eagles that entered the gust of wind completely collapsed. They did not even have time to let out a cry. The gust of wind was still moving forward rapidly, but it was as if it had grown eyes. It chased after this group of desert eagles relentlessly. No matter how they changed their direction, the gust of wind would continue to chase and devour them. What is that? Suddenly, Xiao Yu saw a shiny yellow crystal in the gust of wind. Isn't that a sand crystal? After recovering from his shock, Xiao Yu used all his strength to move over and grab that yellow crystal. After carefully sensing it, he discovered that it contained extremely pure soul power. His face was filled with joy. This should have been left behind by those mystic demon realm desert eagles that died in the gust of wind. After thinking about this, Xiao Yu no longer thought about how to leave this gust of wind that covered an unknown expanse. Instead, he searched for sand crystals in the gust of wind. The gust of wind had devoured countless desert eagles, and the amount of sand crystals among them was rather impressive. However, by forcefully moving his position in the gust of wind, Xiao Yu would also have to endure the attacks from those sand particles and round rocks. It was also because of his extremely high-quality body and some decent defensive techniques that he was able to continue persevering. After moving forward with the gust of wind for another 2 months, Xiao Yu had already obtained more than 60 sand crystals. He had no intention of leaving this gust of wind. Collecting sand crystals in this gust of wind saved him a lot of time compared to waiting bitterly on the Desert Eagle Hill. As more and more desert eagles were caught up by this gust of wind, the number of sand crystals in the gust of wind also increased. Xiao Yu was at the front of this gust of wind. Almost all of those desert eagles had died in front of his eyes. Therefore, he was able to collect the sand crystals before they were destroyed by the sand particles and round rocks. If he was at the middle or tail of this gust of wind, it would probably be very difficult for him to obtain a single sand crystal. This gust of wind seemed to have no end. Xiao Yu had been trapped in this gust of wind for a full 2 years and had obtained close to 1,000 sand crystals. However, this gust of wind still existed. What made Xiao Yu even more puzzled was that this strange gust of wind continued to wreak havoc on the Desert Eagle Hill, but did not rush out of the range of the Desert Eagle Hill. Chapter 356. At the same time, Xiaoling Yu also realized that the wind was getting faster and faster. Naturally, the speed of the sand and pebbles in the wind was also faster than before. With the increase in speed, the attack power naturally increased as well. Gradually, Xiaoling Yu no longer dared to move his position easily. Even if there were sand crystals flying in front of his eyes, he could only look at them. Once he moved to take them, he would be hit by countless sand and pebbles, and his entire body would be in intense pain. However, if he was lucky, the sand crystals would sometimes come to him automatically. However, such situations were very rare, and it was rare to encounter one in a month. More than a year passed. As the wind was too fast, the sand eagles that were swept in would not only be annihilated instantly, but their sand crystals would also shatter at the same time. Xiaoling Yu could no longer obtain sand crystals from the wind, but he also could not escape from the wind at such a fast speed. Even moving was very dangerous, let alone charging out. He could only rely on the high quality of his physical body to not resist the wind's push and maintain the same speed as the wind. This way, even if the pebbles or sand hit him, the impact would not be too strong, and he would be able to persevere for a long time. No matter how strong the gale was, Xiaoling Yu reckoned that it wouldn't be able to easily destroy him. However, if he were to force his way out, not only would he be heavily injured, he might not even be able to kill his way out. Another year passed. It was unknown whether the wind had finally exhausted its power or it had already swept through the entire Sand Eagle Hill. But in any case, the wind stopped. Although it stopped, it did not disappear. Instead, it formed a huge wind pillar that stood between heaven and earth like a swaying dragon. From afar, the wind pillar in the middle of Sand Eagle Hill seemed to connect heaven and earth. However, the wind pillar became thinner and thinner, and its speed of rotation became faster and faster. Even the extremely high-quality round stones were becoming smaller and smaller in size. Everything in the wind pillar seemed to be annihilated and turned into ashes as it spun at such a high speed. Everything that was split or crushed gathered at the center of the wind pillar, causing the space in the middle of the wind pillar to become smaller and smaller. Gradually, it was filled with substance. The wind speed at the center of the wind pillar was the weakest. Xiaoling Yu tried to rush out, but as soon as she moved, she was swept into the center of the wind pillar. The surroundings were either filled with dust or extremely high-quality materials. Not only did Xiaoling Yu feel a little dizzy, but she also felt like her body was being torn apart by a huge force. The pillar of wind lasted for nearly 4 hours before it slowly dissipated. However, it did not disappear. Instead, it drilled into the ground like a long dragon, sinking into the earth. Xiaoling Yu relied on her strong physical body to hold on until the end, but her body was also involuntarily pulled into the sand. The gale that had originally covered a wide area had now been compressed into a single gust of wind that carried countless high-quality substances. It was like an earth dragon that moved swiftly under Sand Eagle Hill, but it was like a dragon swimming in the sea without any restrictions. As he sped along, he dived deeper and deeper. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea had passed, this gust of wind rushed towards a cave that was tens of thousands of feet underground. This cave was not very long, and Gale only took a breath to reach the end. However, at the end of the cave was a pitch-black space. The gale had dissipated, and the surroundings were deathly silent. The substances that were originally condensed together due to the rapid rotation of the gale were now slowly splitting apart. Xiaoling Yu used the silver moon broken sword to split open the hard substances around him, and only then did he manage to escape. What is this place? Looking at the pitch-black surroundings, Xiaoling Yu's brows furrowed. In an unknown place, Xiaoling Yu did not dare to release her aura, nor did she dare to use her mind to casually scan the surroundings. First, she waited quietly for a while. Then she aimed in a direction and slowly flew away. After flying for less than 100 breaths, Xiaoling Yu's expression suddenly changed. This was because in front of him, there was a glowing yellow liquid that was surging towards him like a river. Feeling the terrifying energy contained in the liquid, Xiaoling Yu immediately turned around and retreated. However, what he did not expect was that just as he retreated to his original position, he was shocked to find that the yellow liquid was surging towards him from all directions. It seemed that the liquid was here to drown the substances that had just been swept over by the gale. With a thought, the 6 demons suppressing immortal orbs first flew out of his body and formed a sacred light shield around him. Then, Xiaoling Yu used the chaos demonic power and primal chaos fire to form 2 defensive shields. What surprised Xiaoling Yu was that the high-quality substances began to dissolve rapidly after being submerged by the yellow liquid. A moment later, the liquid surrounded the divine light barrier, but the divine light barrier only lasted for less than 10 breaths of time before it was broken. Xiaoling Yu had just put away the 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs when the defense formed by the primal chaos fire and chaos demonic power had already collapsed. Without any hesitation, Xiaoling Yu's body suddenly disappeared from where he was standing. A small house that was only the size of a palm and glowing with colorful light appeared where he had just disappeared. Xiaoling Yu hid in the spiritual abode. After years of familiarizing himself with it and refining it day and night, he had mastered one function of the spiritual abode. However, this one function was enough. This function was to store his body in the spiritual abode. At a critical moment, it could save his life. However, after entering the spiritual abode, Xiaoling Yu could not make the spiritual abode move at all. The spiritual abode would hover motionlessly in the same place. It was also because of this that Xiaoling Yu had not used the spiritual abode before. He had always felt that he should be able to charge out. Moreover, he had always felt that this gale was definitely not formed naturally. It might have been created by some powerful existence. Otherwise, why would it specifically hunt the desert eagles? Why would it be as if it had grown eyes? If it was really some powerful existence that had created this gale, he would definitely be in big trouble if he rashly used the spiritual abode. Therefore, not only did he not use the spiritual abode before, but he also did not even take out the Silver Moon broken blade ever since he was swept up by the gale. Until now, when danger was imminent, he had no other choice but to hide in the spiritual abode. The yellow liquid that came from all directions instantly gathered together and drowned the spiritual abode. Inside the spiritual abode, Xiaoling Yu could see the situation outside. He felt his scalp tingle when he saw that the substances that could harm him when moving at high speed had already dissolved. However, the spiritual abode was a divine artifact and could not be dissolved by the liquid. Even the colorful light shield released by the spiritual abode could easily block the erosion of the liquid. Only 100 breaths had passed, and almost all of the substances that were swept in by the gale had been dissolved. The liquid continued to wash the spiritual abode, but could not do anything to it. Xiaoling Yu felt a little relieved, but his expression was still very serious because it was obvious that he was trapped here. Although the liquid could not break through the defense of the spiritual abode, it could use the powerful thrust to move the spiritual abode. Xiaoling Yu could only hide inside, but he was powerless to control the movement of the spiritual abode or resist the powerful thrust. He could only watch as the spiritual abode was pushed back into the cave. Not long after, the spiritual abode was washed out of the cave by the liquid. The strange thing was that the liquid seemed to be controlled by someone. Not a single drop flowed out of the cave. There was sand all around. It seemed calm, and Xiaoling Yu had escaped danger. However, he felt that the situation was too strange. If he went out now, he might be instantly killed. At this point, he did not believe that the gale was formed naturally, and he did not believe that the yellow liquid had released the spiritual abode for no reason. This seemingly calm place was definitely hiding a murderous intent. Perhaps the moment he went out, danger would immediately pounce on him. Xiaoling Yu felt that the danger should come from that cave. His gaze was fixed on that cave, and he carefully observed it. The calm continued, as if there was no danger at all. Even so, Xiaoling Yu did not dare to come out. He felt that the other party was competing with him in patience. Xiaoling Yu's patience had always been poor. Now that he was in a hurry to earn immortal crystals to post the mission and find Anya, his patience was even worse. He was aware of this fact, but he couldn't calm himself down to meditate. Instead, he took out a sand crystal and slowly absorbed the spiritual energy within it. When he returned to submit the mission, he only needed about 200 sand crystals. Now that he had 1,000 sand crystals, he could naturally squander them. The pure soul power in the sand crystal slowly entered his body, then flowed into his dantian. Finally, it was absorbed by the chaos demon nascent soul, which then sent it into the chaos golden bead. Xiaoling Yu could clearly feel that his soul power was increasing. Although the speed was not very fast, it was not slow either. After completely absorbing 3 sand crystals, Xiaoling Yu's soul realm successfully broke through to the early stage of the mystic demon realm. Originally, forcefully increasing one soul realm was a very dangerous thing to do. However, Xiaoling Yu already had the strength comparable to a demon monarch, and he often fought with monarch experts. Secondly, the soul power in the sand crystals was very pure. Therefore, the risk of Xiaoling Yu increasing his soul realm by such a large margin was very low. However, every time he increased a small realm, Xiaoling Yu would have to stop and carefully comprehend it. He would only continue to increase his soul realm after familiarizing himself with it. In this way, the time passed quickly. After using more than 300 sand crystals, Xiaoling Yu's soul realm reached the peak of the late stage of the mystic demon realm. Unfortunately, his soul golden bead was no longer accepting the soul power from the sand crystals. It was as if it had eaten its fill. Xiaoling Yu knew that he had reached a bottleneck. Purely absorbing the soul power from the outside world would not allow his soul to advance to the monarch rank. He had to completely comprehend everything about the mystic demon realm. Only then could his soul sublimate. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.